2022 Ivy League Men's Basketball Preseason Media Day. I'm Lance Meadow, a sports broadcaster working for various different outlets, including SiriusXM, the New York Giants, and Westwood One Sports. I've been calling men's and women's Ivy League basketball games for many seasons on various outlets, including ESPN Plus and SNY. And also over the last few years, I have called the national radio call for the Ivy League men's and women's tournament, including the championship games. Looking forward to today's festivities as we set the stage for what should be a very exciting campaign. We appreciate your attendance this morning and looking forward to the conversations that we'll be having. A few notes before we get underway. One, the entire program is going to be recorded and published on the league's YouTube channel at the conclusion of the event today. If you'd like a recording sent to you directly, please contact JJ Klein, the league's office's men's basketball communications contact at jj@ivyleague.com. That is jj@ivyleague.com. In the men's basketball preseason poll, which was released yesterday, just 5 points separated the top three teams. Penn was selected as the preseason favorite. Princeton finished just a point behind the Quakers, and Yale, which represented the league in last season's NCAA tournament, was picked third. A pair of first-team All-Ivy selections returned for this season in Penn guard Jordan Dingle and Princeton forward Tosan Awoma, both of whom will be joining us during today's program. Dingle ranked 12th nationally in scoring, averaging just over 20 points per game. The unanimous selection for Ivy League Player of the Year, Awoma averaged the second most assists per game by a big man in the nation, with just over 5 per contest. We will also be joined by another player who earned postseason recognition in Brown's Keno Lilly Jr. That was last season's Ivy League Rookie of the Year. Competition was tight in the league last year. Numerous games coming down to the wire. 33 conference games were decided by single digits. And of those 33 games, 24 were decided by 2 or fewer possessions. Hopefully a good omen for some competitive basketball this season once again. There will be time allotted at the end of each school session for questions from the participating media. If you have a question, please use the raise hand function. You will be prompted once it is your turn to ask a question. All right, well, without further ado, let's start this bad boy up as we first will turn our attention to the Cornell Big Red. And Cornell had a very impressive campaign last season, with Cornell going 15-11, 7-7 in the conference. They ranked 17th nationally in scoring offense, averaging just over 79 a game, despite only having one player average double digits. And they also earned a bid to Ivy Madness, challenge top-seeded Princeton in the 1-4 contest. So looking forward to hearing what is on tap for the Cornell Big Red. And we are joined by their head coach, Ryan Earl, as well as senior forward Marcus Fillion and senior guard Greg Dolan. Coach, welcome. Thanks so much for your time today. Great to see you. We're going to start with you and open it up for some opening comments before we get into some questions. Floor is all yours.
Thank you. Appreciate seeing you and everyone being here for this. I would just say we're excited. We've lost through graduation a lot of what we did last year, and so we're trying to find our way here. Most scrimmages will start this weekend, and that's the best time to get a feel for what you'll look like this year. Last year, I think we can agree we did a little better than expected. We would have preferred to win the league and win the Ivy tournament, but for coming back from what COVID was for this league, I think we were hopeful for the results going forward, and that we built a little bit. We have a lot of guys who contributed. 2 of them are on the call today. And so we're looking forward to see what they might bring to the table with some defections from last year.
Well, Coach, that's where I want to start, because your play was so unique last season. And I want to throw out a few numbers so our audience at least understands what you were able to accomplish. 13 different players appeared in at least 16 games and averaged at least 8 minutes in those contests. And 9 different players led the team in scoring. So you weren't necessarily relying on one player in particular. How much do you expect to continue that philosophy and implement that game plan once again this year?
Well, we're not sure. I mean, we're always willing to play that way. We have a good group of guys who understand that they're sacrificing a little bit, and they did last year for us to play that way. And I think it promotes everyone playing hard when they're on the court at all times, and they really bought into it. And so I'm not sure if we're going to be playing exactly the same way as many guys in the rotation, but we do have it in our back pocket. Again, the next couple of weeks are really important for us to know what we're going to look like. I think my players, Greg and Marcus, will attest to a long preseason of just playing against each other the whole time. And so those things are up in the air a little bit. It worked last year. Last year's over. We're looking forward to this year. But we need to tinker a little bit over the next couple of weeks.
Well, Coach, with that being said, regardless of what ultimately your offensive philosophy and game plan is this season, how beneficial was it to expose a lot of your players, relatively deep roster, to games both in and out of the conference last season?
Yeah, I mean, I think the margins between players in this league, you have a lot of guys on Ivy League benches who are almost as good as the guys playing in a lot of these institutions. And so on any given day, for us, sometimes the 12th man had a better day than the fifth man. And so we were able to plug those guys in. As long as they did their job, we didn't see much of a drop off. And so that was last year. Again, we may not be doing as much of that this year, but we had a group of guys who were willing to come out and give you everything they had for as long as they were in. And so we sort of morphed into a team that played a lot of players last year. So it's great. I mean, a lot of these guys come. We have big rosters, and I think a lot of them bought into what we were doing, which is when you're on the floor, give it your all, get in, and you'll probably come in again if that's the way it went.
And another thing that jumped out to me about your offense and really the distribution across the team was the ability to rely on the three ball. You made 10 threes per game. Keller Boothby certainly jumped out in terms of his percentage. But how much does that become a big part of the emphasis, no matter how deep your rotation is this season, especially based on the influence of analytics in today's game?
Yeah, I mean, the 3-point shot has since I've been playing has been a weapon that not only gets you 3 points, but it also spreads the floor a little bit for other action. And so we rely on it heavily. Analytics is a great word for in my mind, we were doing this when we were coached at Princeton, where we would only take open threes or open layups, backdoor layups. You didn't call it analytics then, you just called it doing what you're supposed to do. So it's a great push to frame it that way. But in a lot of ways, the 3-point shot gives you so much more than just getting the 3 points. I mean, just the threat of it opens a lot of avenues for you offensively. And so our guys know that that's a weapon that we're going to employ. Greg Dolan on the call right now is someone who shot well as a freshman, not a ton of them, changed his shot and shot even better. And so that sort of attests to how much we believe that it's important to us and that you can improve at it. You're not the player you were when you were a freshman. There's work to be done, and he's one who's done it and has become what we consider a very good shooter.
Coach, I am going to bring in the players here in a sec, but I want to piggyback off of where you started the conversation, because you mentioned, hey, maybe your team last season exceeded expectations, given a lot of people weren't necessarily thinking Cornell was going to make a lot of noise. And in that Princeton game, I mean, you gave Princeton all that it could take in terms of that Ivy League Madness opener. How much do you take away encouragement-wise in your team's fight and how you went up against the higher seeded teams in the mix last season, and maybe have an opportunity to carry that momentum into this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably should be positive, momentum and all that stuff. But if you know me, it stings a little bit. You mentioned Princeton. We lost to them twice, once on a half-court heave. And so that was last year, and for me, I think you can take some things from last year, and we played a certain way and we surprised some people, but that's in the past. I mean, this is a new season. We're 0-0, and it can go either way. And so I think the guys who've played, they might walk in with a little bit more confidence that they can sort of punch back with some of the better teams in the league and the out of conference teams that will play. For the guys who are new to it, they got to understand how intense it is. especially in the Ivy League, where every game seems like it's coming down to the last possession. And so there's a learning curve there. But as far as other than just knowing that you can compete on this level, last year is over. And so we're ready, hopefully, for this year and ready to start things up soon.
And also ready to lean on some senior leadership. So let's bring in the two players that are also on the call, and Greg Dolan and Marcus Fillion. And really, this is a question for both of you. Greg, I want to start with you. We just heard Coach talk about the uniqueness of the system last year, and maybe it doesn't go as deep, but what was it like for the both of you to adjust to a system where on any given night, anyone could really shoulder the load in scoring, and it really takes the ultimate sacrifice of everybody? So, Greg, I'll start with you on that front.
Yeah, I'd say it was definitely a little bit of a change. We had, freshman year, we played a little bit differently when Marcus and I were there. And with kind of the sophomore year being canceled, we had a lot of time to practice and think about things. And I think going into our junior year, we really kind of enjoyed, playing with each other and just kind of like feeding off each other's energy. And, early in that season last year, it was a little bit different. But I think we really hit our stride where everyone just kind of bought into the same notion of, playing hard and playing fast, and whatever comes out of that in a certain game may not dictate, a next game of some sort. So everyone was just kind of keyed in on that. And I think we had a little bit of success last year, and hopefully can carry that on.
And Marcus, how about you? What was it like adjusting to that scheme?
Yeah, just playing off Greg's point, it was a fun rejuvenation of how we played freshman year. We played a little bit slower, it was a little more X&O driven, but coming back last year with a new group of guys, kind of a new retooled roster, just playing loosely, playing fun, playing fast, playing together, and it was a really good experience last year, getting to gain some more experience as a junior, coming back as a freshman, having not had our sophomore year. And yeah, we just learned a lot as a unit last year, and we're looking to build on it this year for sure.
Well, Marcus, on a related note, from just an overall basketball perspective, you say to yourself, well, if a team that's going up against Cornell has to account for 7 or 8 guys can go off, it puts much more stress on the opposing defense, as opposed to going up against a team where, hey, they know one guy's going to drop 25. They really need to focus on containing him. So how much did you see perhaps the defenses that you were going up against over the course of the season stress a little in terms of where the focus should be because of so many different weapons that can contribute?
Our versatility was for sure a threat that we were able to impose on opposing defenses. They weren't really able to key on, as you said, on a single player, and it really helped us, spread the ball and drive and kick and shoot a bunch of threes that we like to do. So it was definitely it was a point that we tried to emphasize, all throughout the season, is that it's not going to be one guy taking a bunch of shots and, scoring 30 a game and winning us games, but it's going to be a group effort. And we kind of need all guys to, pick up some slack and contribute so we can win as a group.
Greg, I want to bring you back into the conversation. You missed a stretch of last season due to injury, January, February, right as Ivy League play was starting. Then obviously you came back into the mix. What was that like, navigating, and maybe how beneficial is it, given the fact that you were sidelined a bit, that there were other guys to lean on in your absence?
Yeah, I'd say it was definitely tough, missing a few games, during kind of a key stretch of Ivy League play. So for me personally, I never like having to sit out. But I think, as a team, like we really, like I said, really hit that stride. We had a couple guys who got a lot more minutes off the bench, I'd say, or played a much more of a key role. And that was great to see. So kind of as I came back near the end of the season, there are a lot of other guys who were contributing and kind of in a groove. So it was something where, we had one goal, and that was to, get to the Ivy League tournament and make a run at it. So however that was going to play out at the end of the season, is what we hoped for. And if that changed a bit of, each person's roles, I think we were all completely fine with that, and just playing kind of for a greater good for the team.
Greg, speaking of roles, as a senior, and Marcus, you certainly relate to this as well. When you reach that final year, you're expected to maybe take on a little bit more of a vocal presence and help mold and groom some of the younger players. So what is your outlook for this season, Greg, from the standpoint of being that leader and being somebody that will help bring around and usher in the new regime that's going to follow you?
Yeah, I'd say it's just kind of setting a tone, every day, when we're practicing, especially in the preseason. And as we start to get to the scrimmages and games here, I think that'll be really important for the young guys as, I remember as a freshman, I wasn't too sure what would be coming in Ivy League and how different it is playing in actual games versus practice. So I think it's just really kind of, letting those guys know and trying to give them as many tips as possible on what to do. And especially, in the circumstance now where we're relying on a lot of those guys, in certain spot or key minutes in a season. And we're not sure who will, be relied upon at certain times. So I think everyone needs to be ready for something. And I think that's what kind of makes the team fun is everyone can, contribute something.
And Marcus, how about you on that front in terms of taking on more of a vocal presence as a senior leader on this team?
Yeah, it's been fun so far taking on a greater leadership role and kind of bring up the new guys up to speed with, the standards that we have set within our program so that we can, come competition time, compete and win and compete for an Ivy League championship. Because, as a freshman coming in, you don't really know what you don't know. But now as a senior, I have a greater understanding of like what we want to do as a program and what our coaches are looking for and how to compete on every possession to give the young guys something to look up to and a standard at which we can compete.
Speaking of that standard, Marcus, I want to expand on that point because I was talking with Coach earlier and I posed the question about going up against Princeton and giving the Tigers everything you had and nearly knocking them off in that 1-4 matchup in Ivy Madness. What was your takeaway from that? The fact that if Princeton was the standard last season and you took them to the brink, what that could perhaps do for this team moving forward here?
I think it gave the returning guys a lot of sense of confidence. We split with them in the regular season, so we know that we were able to compete with them on the floor. But just coming off of a 4-point loss in the Ivy League tournament last year just gave us fuel to the fire to, see how we can compete in the league and know that, shots might not fall one night or things may be going a different way another night. But as long as we compete and we stay together as a group, we can win any game in the league and we can give ourselves a shot to compete for the championship.
And Greg, I want to pose the same thing to you. What do you take away mindset-wise in terms of what you were able to accomplish specifically against the number 1 seed in the Ivy League last season?
Yeah, I'd say it's, similar to Marcus, that it was good for us to see where we kind of stood, within the Ivy League and when with Princeton. But I wouldn't say that's like our only goal either. Every team changes from year to year. We play a little similar at times with like Princeton does with offense wise. And there's other teams that has given us trouble in the past as well. So it's really just kind of going into a game and really not looking at the opponent as much as just what we've kind of been game planning for and, seeing what we can do to kind of stop that and just kind of looking one game ahead, at each point in time.
Coach Earl, I want to bring you back into the conversation because last season, from a structure standpoint, we saw the change where it wasn't back-to-backs every single weekend throughout conference play. So it was a bit of adjustment where there were some weekends you had one game. I'm curious from a coaching standpoint, you were a player in the Ivy League, so you also experienced the back-to-back. What was it like adjusting to that? And do you think perhaps having that versatility maybe changes the approach for teams, including yourself?
Yeah, I think first the physical part of it, the recovery from week to week with single game weekends is probably better for the athlete. Where you used to have a tough Friday game night, you had a long bus ride, played Saturday, and that recovery from that weekend might be a lot for the guys. And so we sort of saw maybe a little bit healthier of a team going through with those 1 game weekends it from my perspective, being at Cornell, I remember taking the ride from Columbia to Cornell, and that was the most brutal of the Friday to Saturday night trips. So I long for those days sometimes when we need a win. But I think it's a move towards making things better for the student athlete, and it's done a good job. I think those 1 game weekends, you can really lock into an opponent, they lock into you, and you're probably getting as good a match as you want out of that.
the pros and cons of having travel partners that are extremely lengthy apart, even though they're within the same state, something you can attest to in Columbia and Cornell. And Coach, hang on here. We're going to bring in some media members to ask some questions as well. And we're going to start with Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Jonathan, the floor is all yours.
There's the unmute button. Okay. Thanks, Lance. Hi, Brian.
Hello.
You know, in the couple of years before the pandemic and heading into it, there was a whole lot of conversation about, you know, how high the caliber of the basketball in the league was, and it became a little harder to judge over the last couple of years. But you know, now coming back to, I guess, as close to normal as we're going to get, you know, for a little while here, where do you place the league as a whole in the national landscape?
I mean, I think it's up there. It's really competitive. I mean, watching our league compete out of the Ivy, you know, I know Dartmouth had a win last year in a game, and that was pretty good. I remember Princeton fighting with Minnesota, and so you have a high caliber athlete in this league, and I think it's up there with as good as it's been. And you know, from back in the days when myself and Mitch and Mike were playing in the league, you probably have the level from every team is much higher, obviously, than I think when we played, where there might have been only 2 or 3 teams really vying for a championship and sort of giving those good games to those high level opponents. And so I think it's been great. I think we recovered from that pandemic probably better than people expected, with losing a lot of classes that we invested in that never played their final season. I think you had a lot of really high character kids in this league who hung with it and were able to give a lot in this past season.
And in that regard, how has all of that made scheduling for you? I know you have a couple of good road trips this year, you know, Miami and obviously you play Syracuse often, but you know, how has it made scheduling for you this year, coming out of the pandemic, but also teams knowing, hey, this group is good. We sort of want to play them, but we don't want them to be too good so that we don't play them, you know? Yeah,
well, scheduling is an incredible, interesting world of, there's a book somewhere behind scheduling. And so there's a lot of economics, you know, we were in heavy demand after a mediocre season prior to the pandemic, no season during the pandemic. And, you know, everybody's your friend trying to schedule that game with you. And so after last season was a little more difficult for us. And I think, you know, the guys who are traditionally at the top of the league will speak to how hard it is for Princeton, Penn, Yale, you know, even us to get games now, as people don't want to see losses on their schedule. And so it's been harder to schedule this season. We're making some lengthy road trips and playing, you know, some really good mid-major teams, Delaware and Lehigh. And so it's been more difficult, particularly after our sort of somewhat surprising season last year.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
And thanks so much, Jonathan. Well, Coach Earl, Greg, Marcus, greatly appreciate the time and the insight. I wish all of you the best of luck this season, and certainly looking forward to seeing you guys out on the court.
Thanks.
You got it. My pleasure, as that is a look at the Cornell Big Red. And Cornell opens its season on the road against Boston College Monday, November 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So you can certainly check them out sooner rather than later. And from Cornell, we now transition to the team that they went up against in the first round of Ivy Madness, the reigning regular season Ivy League champion, Princeton Tigers. As Princeton was an extremely dynamic team last season. They went 12-2 in conference. They returned the unanimous selection for Ivy League Player of the Year, Tosan Awoma, who's going to be one of the players we're going to be joined with, as they also earned a postseason berth to the NIT. And speaking of the Princeton Tigers, we now bring in head coach Mitch Henderson, along with senior forward Tosan Awoma and senior guard Ryan Langborg. Coach, excited to welcome you to the 2022 Men's Media Day, good to see you. I will open it up to you for some opening comments before we get started.
I'd first like to thanks for having us here, but address that this has been a very trying week for us here at Princeton and the university, our Princeton community, in the search for Misrach Ewaneti, a student that's been missing since last Friday. Our Princeton University family is such an important part of who we are, and as a program, a member of our campus community needs our help. I ask anyone who may have information on this to contact our Department of Public Safety at 609-258-1000, 1000. The thoughts and prayers of everybody involved with Princeton basketball and Princeton athletics are with Misrach, the Ewaneti family, and all who are close to her at this time. I think I'll stop there and we can continue if you can.
Sure, not a problem, Coach. And we certainly echo your sentiments and appreciate you addressing that and taking the time with your players to set the stage for the upcoming season. Coach, I want to start with you as we transition to basketball. You look at your roster, such a balanced attack last season, but I can only imagine what it's like to have to fill the void left behind by losing guys like Ethan Wright and Jalen Llewellyn and Drew Freiberg. So what is it like during the course of this preseason to shuffle some personnel around and have other guys take on larger roles this season?
Yeah, well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. We lost a lot of good pieces, but been doing this long enough to know that, we're talking now in October about what the team's going to be like. Even last year, we were unsure going into our first game, kind of what it would be like, because we hadn't played for a long time. Last year is ancient history, and we've always been a program of improvement, getting better on a day-to-day basis. And I love the group and the way that they've committed to making each other better, starting with Tosan Ryan and Matalako, the guys that have returned for us, that are our leaders and our captains, but most importantly, leaders in terms of improvement. I like our group an awful lot. And we had a rotation last year that everybody kind of knew, but you haven't seen a lot of the pieces that we have, that we're excited about as a group. And, of course, Ryan and Tosan and Mush, who I just mentioned, Matalako, and we call him Mush, have been in a lot of big games, and they're going to lead the way for us in terms of how to get that done for the others.
From a coaching standpoint, as you just mentioned, you're looking for other guys to step in, and certainly some of your existing players who are with us here to take on larger roles. How much has that put a spark in the competitive fire of this team, especially as they're going up against one another?
Practices have been really competitive, and that's a good thing. And we were, talking the other day about tension in practice and then kind of embracing each other off of the floor. Want to generate that in a very healthy way for the team. But, who makes the most shots? How do you take care of the ball? Who can guard? And when it matters in January, February, and March, these are the things that, for us, we know that when, it gets to 2023, you've got to be playing your very best basketball. And this is a group that's been committed to that. And it's a process. I know that gets overused a little bit, but you've got to compete and you've got to play to win every single day. And we've been working hard just like everybody else has. The league's so good. Everybody's so good. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody else and doing our part to getting better and improving in November and December.
The numbers that jump out to me, Coach, about your team, in addition to all the talent that we talked about, you had 4 different players average double figures, 4 different players hit at least 55 threes, and you made a league best 297 threes. And the reason I bring that up is it was spread across the board. You had a spread the wealth type of mentality. The players that observe that, who now may have an opportunity, how beneficial was that they understand the concept and philosophy of what you want to run, and that it should be a relatively smooth transition from that standpoint?
Well, it'll be smooth because of Tosan. He tends to, he had 140 plus assists. It's what a point guard would dream of. You put guys in good positions and he finds them. He's so incredibly unselfish, and he'll make all of us very good coaches. And Ryan's certainly happy. I'm looking at Ryan right now on this call that Tosan's around. He makes people around him better. and doesn't really matter who's out there with him. That's not a magic thing. It's not going to happen naturally. Of course, we all still have to work to improve, but the concept of who we are is often generated for us by who the players are. And we have really good players in the program, and Tosan being very special and makes everybody around him better.
Well, Coach, I want to bring in your players to piggyback off of that statement. You mentioned Ryan was smiling. So, Ryan, let's start there. You're one of the 4 players that I referenced that hit at least 55 threes. When you have a guy like Tosan who can orchestrate the traffic and somebody like you who can set up on the wing and get some good looks, what luxury is it to have somebody like Tosan? And you don't see a big guy like that be able to distribute as effectively as he did in the league.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, I've never played with someone like him before, and to come here and I get some of the easiest shots I've ever taken in my life when we just got to get him the ball, have a little 3-man action, and I get an easy look at the basket. So it makes my job a lot easier. Takes a lot of pressure off me and the other guys as well, because while he's making assists, he's also scoring 15, 20 points a game. So it makes our offense dynamic and pretty much unguardable.
Now, as a senior leader on this team, I was just talking with Coach about some guys maybe transitioning, others like yourself maybe taking on a little bit more. What vocal presence do you take on this year, Ryan? Maybe that was a little bit different from previous years because of the other seniors that were on the team.
Absolutely. I'm having to really adjust kind of how I work vocally on the floor. Normally I was kind of a quiet guy. There's some bigger personalities that would take that role, and I would kind of just work my butt off. But this year with a lot of young guys, I kind of got to show people the ropes, use my voice all the time, constantly talk on defense, make sure everyone's in the right spot. So it's different. It'll be a challenge for me, but I'm ready for it, and it'll be fun.
Tosan, I want to bring you into the conversation as well. As I mentioned off the top, the unanimous Ivy League Player of the Year. That means everybody following the league knew to pinpoint you for that accolade. Most people would say, okay, well, what else is there to accomplish from an individual standpoint? Something tells me you're still very much motivated, but how much do you build upon what you were able to at least accomplish from an individual standpoint last season?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more to accomplish. I mean, we had a pretty good year last year, but we did fall short of what we wanted to accomplish in full. So, we're always working towards that and our broader team goals. And of course, I can always get better. There's things I have to work on, the same as everybody else. So, it's a daily grind and a daily effort. And I'm just fortunate to have, great teammates and coaching staff around me to help me with that.
I was just talking with your coach as well as Ryan, how great it is to have a player that could distribute and see the court as well as you do. On the flip side, how much of a luxury is it for you to be surrounded by players like Ryan and company that can knock down those good looks from downtown?
Yeah, I mean, the luxury is all mine, like having these guys around me, just guys who can really shoot the ball and do a whole bunch of different things. It's just a really fun way to play. And it's great. It's great to have these guys around me.
In terms of how defenses, Tosan, I'm curious, approached you, because we talk about your versatility. For individuals that aren't familiar, all they need to do is bring up your statistics. You fill up the stat sheet. How much the fact that you can facilitate as much as you can look to score puts a lot of stress on the opposing defenses, and what you may have noticed as the season evolved last season in terms of how teams really had a trick or two maybe up their sleeves to try to see who they wanted to focus on, because if they left you open, you'd score. If not, then you'd be able to hit the open man.
Yeah, I mean, just similar to what I said, it's just such a luxury to have these guys around me. And, we were obviously super difficult to guard last year. And, looking on kind of the same thing this year, and just the way we play, like you said, with me in the middle and guys around me, defenses have to kind of make a decision on who they come off a little bit. So, looking forward to the way we play as usual.
Before we open it up to media questions, and Ryan, I want to bring you in on this response too, but let's start with you, Tosan. We just talked to Coach about it's been very competitive in practice because there's roles up for grabs. What have you seen, Tosan, out of your teammates that are fighting for a little bit more of an opportunity this season?
Yeah, 100%. It's being super competitive top to bottom. Like you said, there's roles up for grabs, and guys have to prove themselves, and it's just kind of the work we put in every day. And the the guys the returners from last year, you know, myself, Ryan, and some others, like it's not a time for us to relax either. Like, you know, we're bringing the same intensity every day and trying to make guys around us better, and you know, bring the young guys up to speed. And so yeah, it's just been great, the competitiveness we've had so far.
And Ryan, what about you? What have you observed so far during the course of practices and workouts?
Yeah, it's been, like everyone said, super competitive. Everyone's giving 100% every practice, and everyone's going at each other's throats the whole time, which it really is the way that we improve as a team collectively. So with spots up for grabs, I mean, everyone's getting better. Everyone's here 30 an hour before practice, getting their extra work in. It's a fun atmosphere for people who want to improve and get better. So we're going to have a really good year.
Well, I appreciate all of you for answering my questions. Now let's mix it up. Speaking of versatility, and bring in members of the media. We start with Richard Kent of Ivy Hoops Online. Richard?
Hey, Mitch, how are you?
Great, Richard. How are you?
Good. Mitch, two questions. First, can you talk a bit about Coach Kirill and what he meant not only to you, but to your program right now? And secondly, can you just give a couple of comments about the pending issue regarding Ivy League academic and athletic scholarships?
Coach, I'll answer the second one first. You know, that's really a university issue. We've got, you know, trusting and with the university how they'll handle that. It's really that's not really in my space. With Coach Kirill, you know, we had the good fortune, not this group, but most of us around here had the good fortune of being around him for the last 10 years, 11 years, almost daily. And my wife would often say to me, what are all these stories you're talking about with Coach Kirill? He's such a nice guy, you know? And it was a real pleasure to get to know him and his family, his extended family here the last few years. We miss him. I thought that we had a terrific celebration of life at the end of September for him. And so much of what comes out of my mouth, the guys were teasing me after the celebration about, oh, you know, those aren't your words. They're Coach Kirill's words, should be cited. He has influenced so many of us that are in coaching, and his influence on the game of basketball and coaches and on many of us here at Princeton is so unique and special. And we're looking forward with this group to honoring him throughout the course of the season with a patch on our uniforms and having an ongoing conversation about Coach and which he deserves, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Let's go to Jerry Carino of Gannett, New Jersey. Jerry?
Mitch, how are you? Sorry, my camera's not working.
No problem, Jerry. How are you?
I'm good. Tosan, how is he unique from any player you've ever coached, or is there someone you've coached who he reminds you of a little bit?
No one like him that I've coached. And you know, I think Ryan Langborg said it right. Never coached anybody with him. I think our guys have never played with anybody like him. And Tosan has a spirit of humility. You know, when you push him to get a little bit better, you can see that he's a very humble person. He wants to be the best version of himself. He's hard on himself, but he is so gifted at seeing things early and being poised. It's a very unusual skill, and I don't think we'll see a passer like him again at Princeton basketball for 50 years. It's really a special and unique ability to make others around him better. And I just think as good as he was a year ago, high expectations for him and the team going forward for this year. I think he can make big improvements. And this is only our third year coaching him. All these guys, really, it's like we're looking forward to being together and going through it again.
Have you heard from NBA scouts about him? And if so, what have they said?
Yeah, several. And they want to come see him play, and they're looking forward to watching him. And we talk openly about it and with Tosan, and I'll share with you what I tell him. I'm like, hey, look, they're looking to see if you're making an impact on all the facets of the game, as well as what you're like as a teammate. You know, the chemistry of the groups in the NBA is very similar to what it looks like in college. And what I tell them is he's the ultimate teammate, always there for his teammates and always making others around him better. And I think he'd be an incredible piece to an NBA franchise.
Thanks, Mitch. Could I ask a question of Tosan? Is this a good time?
Real
Yeah.
quick, Jerry. Yeah.
Tosan?
How you doing, Jerry?
Good, good. Just can you tell us how you connected with Princeton in the beginning? Was it Brett McConnell who found you over there?
Yeah, that was the how the initial dialogue started. Actually, my coach from back home reached out to him on my behalf, amongst other schools. That was kind of how it first started.
All right. Thanks a lot, fellas.
Thanks, Jerry. Let's go to Kyle Franco of the Trentonian. Kyle?
Hey, Mitch.
Hey, Kyle.
I wanted to ask you about Ryan and just sort of his evolution from the time he got here. And is he more of a complete player now as a senior?
Yes, definitely. We went back and watched. We watched a lot of video and we showed some clips of Ryan from a year ago defensively, and he's taking on ownership of that, and he did that last year of making that a priority. We talk about his shooting, which is so high level, but what I like about the team, and Ryan and Tosan and Mush exemplify this, is their humility. Ryan's very quick to laugh at himself, and doesn't take anything too seriously, and I think that's a really good quality for a team to have. But he's also ultra competitive, and that was also a really good quality to have in a senior. I think generally, Kyle, teams in our league go as the seniors go. And I'm really pleased with the leadership we have in the senior class, and that Ryan's such a big part of that for us. And I'm expecting him to have a terrific year.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, Kyle. Let's go to Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Jonathan?
Thanks, Lance. Hi, Mitch.
Hey, Jonathan.
How has scheduling been for you for this season? Because I don't think it seems that the rest of the country hasn't, forgotten about the quality of players in the league, but also you guys are going to London too. So how has it all come together this season?
I love our schedule. We try to play a national schedule. We want to challenge the guys as often as possible, as frequently as possible, against the very best teams in the country. We are going to London, which will be a terrific experience for us. We'll get an opportunity to play in Tosan's home country, which is really cool for him, but also cool for us. And scheduling's been challenging because we've had really good success lately in the last few years against some of the high major schools. But our expectation, Jonathan, is to challenge ourselves as much as we can, play a national schedule. This predates me. This is going back to Coach Carrill's time, and we want to. I think the level of talent in the league is very high, and that's no different here. And yes, there's more non-conference, less non-conference games, and more of the big conferences are playing themselves more frequently. So there's less opportunities to play these games, but that's our ultimate goal, is to play a national schedule, be a national program.
Jonathan, appreciate the question. Coach Henderson, Ryan, Tosan, greatly appreciate your time and insight today. Look forward to seeing the team, and best of luck this season.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You got it. And the Princeton Tigers will open the season at home against Hofstra on Monday, November 7th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. From Princeton, we turn to the Penn Quakers, as Penn also made Ivy Madness. They finished with a 12-16 record last season, but 9-5 in conference play, and they were led by unanimous first-team All-Ivy selection Jordan Dingle, who will be one of the players joining us right now from the Penn Quakers. In addition to him, we have head coach Steve Donahue, as well as senior guard Lucas Monroe. Coach, welcome aboard to 2022 Men's Basketball Media Day. Great to see you. Hope all is well. I will open it up to you first for some opening comments.
Thanks, Lance. Pleasure to be here. Excited like everybody else to get the season rolling. In particular, with what our league has been through and everybody's been through with the pandemic. It felt great to have a regular preseason and working hard and kind of know what to expect, and excited like everybody else to get going.
Well, let's start with the expectations, Coach, that have been placed on your team. According to the preseason poll, you have been selected to be the favorite, the team that will be setting the standard. Curious your reaction and what you think about some of the early hype surrounding your team.
Well, I think a lot of that is based on what is returning, and sometimes rightfully so, but other times you really don't know the growth of kids at this age and who gets better even within our program. So I think it's good that people recognize that we had a good group last year that was coming along, and with a lot of returning leadership and players back, it bodes well for you if indeed every day you're paying attention to the habits that make you good. And that's the key thing. So it's not like we talk about it at all, but I am excited about this group because it is a group that has really worked hard over the last 6 months.
Coach, you referenced the benefit of having a normal preseason in comparison to last year. Numbers that jump out to me from last season, you had 13 different starting lineups, unfortunately, due to injuries and COVID-19 protocols. And based on your reaction, I know it's not something that I'm sure is enjoyable from a coaching perspective. And you also had 12 different players that posted double-digit scoring in a game last season. My point is, you relied on a lot. How much does perhaps that experience that you exposed your team to last season maybe give you a little bit more flexibility this year?
Well, Lance, I think you touched on a couple things. One, we were very inexperienced last year. We essentially had 3 kids who were juniors last year. We're the only kids that really ever played college basketball. We just didn't have a senior class per se, and obviously the freshman and sophomore had never played. And then top that out with some rankings having us as the 10th hardest non-conference schedule. To get all through that and the ability of the guys to get off to an 8-2 start in the league. And then, unfortunately, injuries and COVID hit us again towards the end of the year. But they've been through all that. I feel strongly that will benefit at some point, whether it was last year or this year, benefit from all those experiences that we went through last year, because at times it was very difficult. And I give the guys a ton of due respect because I thought they really handled all the adversity in that preseason really well to come out of the gates and kind of get off the mat and perform well in the league.
You referenced how well you played in Ivy League play. During one stretch, you won 6 out of 7. How much do you think, Coach, that was a product of, given all the ups and downs and the changes in the lineups, that once guys were meshing on the court, that the team ultimately started to click?
Yeah, I think, Lance, I give the guys credit because, there was stretches in that preseason that you just didn't understand exactly where we were going. I think there's some really good leadership, and 2 guys that you're looking at on the screen, Lucas and Jordan, had a lot to do with that. But then the guys just kind of getting comfortable with college basketball. Michael Moskovitz and Max Martz has always been someone, since he's been here, someone we can lead on with leadership. I just thought those guys finally understanding how we were going to win college basketball games came through as we hit the league.
Coach, you brought up Max Martz. I think another guy that stands out to me is Clark Slackert, because you do return your top 4 scorers. Those 2 players in particular, I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about how great Jordan Dingle is, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I think that's well documented. But what makes your team even more unique is the depth you have. What particularly did you get out of Max and Clark last year that you could build upon this season?
Well, I think the depth is something that is just really unique in my situation here, because I thought after last year, we just were so many kids that I could count on for different roles. And I think that's going to be a key to this year, Lance, is that these guys don't care that who scores, who starts, who finishes. It's because there was, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of guys have had success in games. Clark and Max have shown that they can really do it on a consistent basis in different ways. I think Clark is one of the better scorers in the Ivy League. He scores in different ways, and that's saying a lot because obviously the way Jordan scores the ball at times. And Max Martz is someone that I'm pretty sure we know what we're going to get every game. Very good defender, guards different positions, very good shot maker. I think he shot almost 82% from two in the league. So there's two guys that that we can really count on and understand what they're going to do game in and game out.
Coach, I want to bring your players into the conversation. Speaking of scoring, Jordan, that's a beautiful transition to your game, given you were 12th in the nation in that department. But the other thing that I think gets unnoticed, Jordan, about your game is you're also top 10 in the Ivy League in assists per game. And you had the benefit of a lot of other scorers that I was just talking with Coach about. So how much does the balanced scoring help you to facilitate as well as get even more opportunities to put the ball in the hole?
Oh, it's a big help. Last year, like my coach previously stated, we were really young and guys were kind of trying to figure out how it worked to win Ivy League games, but they've made tremendous jumps in the offseason, and in practicing with them, I've been able to notice that. And it's been a lot easier. The ball's moving a lot better, and our scoring is coming from multiple places at once. So I think it's going to make us a lot harder to guard.
Now, as we just talked about, you're so synonymous with scoring, and you made an immediate impact on this league once you came aboard. But Jordan, now entering this season, what are you looking to refine about your game specifically?
Well, my coaches and I had some conversations about some of the things that we felt I needed to work on. And obviously with everybody else on the team coming back and getting so much better, I think that the main thing I'm going to focus on is trying to maximize my teammates' abilities. Last year, the team was formatted so that I had to do a lot of the scoring myself. And at times it did make us a little bit easier to guard. So now with multiple weapons coming from across the points of the floor, I think that our game plan is going to be to kind of have me be more of a facilitator this year and try to, put my guys in the best spots and make scoring as easy as possible for them.
Speaking of the makeup of the team, Lucas, I want to bring you into the conversation. I was talking with Coach earlier, that 6-win stretch out of 7 games, it seemed all of a sudden the team started to click. What did you notice as you got into the heart of Ivy League play in which maybe the dynamics of this team changed last season?
I think if you compare the Ivy League schedule to what we were doing in the preseason, there's just a lot more consistency once we got to the Ivy League. Travel was way less. One of our problems in the preseason was that we were playing so many road games and they were so close to each other. We didn't really have a chance to practice much. Most of our practices were walkthrough, scout-based, not very physical. So it's kind of hard to work on some of our weaknesses. And I think that shifted when we got to Ivy League play because you have a whole week of practice before you're traveling. And there's obviously more home games built in. And I think that's one of the reasons it became more consistent. We were able to pinpoint some of the weaknesses. Winter break was really big for us because we weren't playing games. We were allowed to go be a lot more physical during practice and play and get up and down more and really work on some of the stuff that we were struggling with. And I think that's one of the reasons why we were able to come out and have such a strong start.
As a senior leader on this team, and we talked about the benefit you return a wealth of experience, how much does that make your job easier as a vocal presence on this team, that a lot of the guys already, they know what you need to accomplish. They've already bought in and they fully understand the schemes and systems?
Yeah, well, again, like looking back at last year, I think everyone's kind of learning at the same time. Even though, like Coach Donahue said, we did have 3 guys that had played a little bit before, and myself, Jordan, and Max Martz. But that was kind of a whole different lifetime ago. I mean, so much had happened since our freshman year. Obviously with the world, but just in terms of like our team, we had a lot of new faces. So we were still kind of learning, and we had all been, the 3 of us were in different roles. So even our experience from our freshman year was a little bit different. And I think this year we have so many guys that were able to get real game experience and important big minutes. And we kind of have come together and there's less teaching each other. I think guys are like getting things more quickly. There's less like going over stuff in practice. Everyone kind of gets what we want to do, gets what we need to do. And I think it's making it easier for Coach Donahue to implement new things and easier for us to pick up on stuff.
I want to open it up to some media questions as we continue to preview the upcoming campaign for the Penn Quakers. And let's start in the heart of Philadelphia with Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Jonathan?
Thanks, Lance. Hi, Steve.
What's up, Jonathan?
I'm good. A little busy, as you know, but I'm good. It's been, 16 years since this team was picked to top preseason poll. What do you think over the course of the season goes to fulfill that?
Well, I didn't realize it was that long. I think for us, we play such an incredible non-conference schedule. And again, I think we're in the top 25 in non-conference schedule with the Big Five games. Obviously, Iona, Missouri, West Virginia. I think our ability to show our growth and competitiveness in those games needs to be at a high level. We just can't go out there understanding that we think we're good, and when we get to the Ivies, we'll be good. I think winning has to start, and being successful and really creating that winning way has to start in the preseason. I just don't think it's something you turn on and off. So our goal is to be very competitive, and it always is, to try to win the Big Five title here in Philadelphia. I just feel like we're a team that's now, with healthy bodies and size and depth, that we should be able to compete for a Big Five championship, because that's the first really goal each and every year, and then move on to our next segment, which would be, the 14-game Ivy League season.
I want to ask you also about another Max, and this one is Lurka Lloyd. Hard to believe he's already a senior. Obviously, he came in with such big expectations, and then the world went sideways for 2.5 years beyond anybody's control. What are your expectations for him this year?
Well, my anticipation is that we're going to get, a full season out of Max. I thought that was a big blow to us last year. We were so limited in size, and him going down after 6 games, I thought he played well for the first 6 games of his career, even though he's a junior. He's shown the ability to really rebound, defend. He's a very good passer at this point in his career. I think he plays well off these guys, Lucas and Jordan and Jonah Charles. They know each other so well now. I just think you're going to see a more complete player than you had for just a snapshot that you saw of Max. But it just adds a whole different dimension defensively and rebounding that we just haven't had here. So I'm excited for him and his chance to come out and show what he can do.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Thanks, Jonathan. Let's go to Brad Fathom of the Quaker Audio Network. Brad?
Coach Donahue, how you doing?
What's up, Brad?
Not too much. Kind of pulling on Jonathan's thread there with the schedule. For people who follow the program, this year's schedule looks a little different, largely just number of games at home and in the city of Philadelphia, and especially with the Cathedral Classic, that MTE being hosted at the Palestra. What was the overarching philosophy, and was it intentional to get, less travel, more games in and around Philly?
We only played 9 home games last year, the least amount in the country. We played 8 quad 1-2s, the most in college basketball last year. I just thought this year, if I can get these guys to play in the Palestra and play as many games as possible. Now, with the Cathedral Classic, I just thought it was a great chance to get some really good mid-majors to come to Philadelphia, and with some Philadelphia ties in Colgate and Matt Langle, who played here, and Delaware, 2 NCAA teams, and Martin Inglesby. I just thought it was another way to really bring really good college basketball to what I consider the best arena in college basketball. So he's played 3 doubleheaders in a row. But after what we experienced last year, I think for these guys to really feel what the Palestra's like and try to build some momentum with some home games, I thought was important, as well as still let them go challenge themselves at Iona, West Virginia, Missouri, and obviously Villanova.
That's great. Appreciate that. And then just one other follow-up question. Obviously, Jelani Williams, his career at Penn was had some highs and lows, but I think he brought a tremendous amount of intangibles to the team. How have you gone about trying to replace some of his leadership and some of those intangibles that he brought to the team?
Yeah, Brad, I think that's a point that people outside of coaches and players don't really appreciate. He was incredible for us last year. Even though he had never played a college basketball game, he's been around us for 5 years. And I just thought, in particular on the defensive end, his leadership, his toughness, his lead by example, getting on the floor first, all these little things was very important to us. And when he went down, we were 8-2 and a pretty good defensive team within the league. That completely fell off when Jelani left. What I would say is I think all the guys learned a great deal through the experience and just understand it more. It's like, the uncle that was here for us and now he's gone. We like to call him an old head. He's going to be at Howard. But I thought his lessons are still with us. And these guys, in particular, the two on the screen, I think have understand what the leadership needs to be. And it's a credit to Jelani for helping us get to this point.
Thanks, Coach. Looking forward to seeing you all soon.
All right, Brad.
All right, thanks, Brad. Let's go to John Title of Hoops HD. John?
Good afternoon, Coach. Just wanted to continue asking about scheduling stuff. Obviously, as you said, no small feat when you have Rick Pitino and Bob Huggins to worry about next month. But if you can look a little farther ahead to December 3rd, what kind of experience do you expect when Fran Dunphy makes his return to the Palestra?
Yeah, it's incredible. I just think he's one of the greatest mid-major coaches in the history of the game to go to 17 NCAA tournaments. Just to get him back in this building, and then to play him with another team, which I'm sure he'll have his imprint all over it. Let's think about it. They'll guard, they won't turn the ball over, they'll rebound, and if the players believe in it early on, they'll be a really good basketball team. And the emotions are high for Big 5 games anyway, but put Fran in this building, just thinks it adds even that much more.
And thanks so much, John. Coach Donahue, Lucas, Jordan, can't thank you enough. Greatly appreciate the time and the insight. Looking forward to seeing the team this season, and best of luck.
Great. Thanks.
You got it. Our pleasure, as the Penn Quakers will open their season on the road against Iona on Monday, November 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern, as Penn finishing 9-5 in conference play last season. They were the 3 seed in Ivy Madness. From Penn, we are now going to transition to the Harvard Crimson, as Harvard went 13-13 overall last season, 5-9 in Ivy League play. Their top returning scorer is Chris Ledlum. He averaged nearly 17 a game, also led the team with just over 9 rebounds per contest. And we are joined by the head coach of the Harvard Crimson, Tommy Amaker, along with guards Edon Tretu and Luka Sakota. Coach, greatly appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Men's Basketball Media Day. Great to see you. Hope all is well. I'll open it up to you for some opening comments.
Well, Les, thank you so much. It's always wonderful to get an opportunity to kick the season off and have media days and opportunities to speak about our team, and more specifically, these two guys who are on the screen with us as seniors. We're always very proud to represent Harvard basketball in this great institution, and we're looking forward to a year that hopefully we can stay healthy. These guys know a little bit about that, Edon in particular being out for us, but we are pretty healthy as we start now. But I think everyone goes through those cycles, certain parts of the season. But we're optimistic like everyone else is around the country. I love our team. I love the spirit, of our group and the chemistry that this team is bringing together. We have some losses from last year, as we know, and Noah Kirkwood in particular was our best player a year ago. So a lot to fill in for. But I do like what these young guys, this particular team can do for us this year. And we're expecting leadership, we're expecting hard work, and we're also expecting an opportunity for us to be a contender.
Well, Coach, I want to start with the big void that you have to fill that you just referenced in Noah Kirkwood, because he brought so much to the table. That goes without saying. So how do you go about replacing that? Is it one player in particular? Do you look for a few players to take on that? How do you go about attacking that?
One of the things that I learned through the years is that you have to be who you are. And we're not trying to be someone else, and you mentioned about replacing someone. I appreciate that thought and certainly that question. This team may have an opportunity to do things in a different way, and we have to find ourselves as we go. We certainly know what our identity is as a program, so we're trying to live up to that in terms of that aspect. But we're not going to try to figure out what Noah did for us and now can we do what he did. He was a tremendous player for us in so many different ways, our best playmaker. So I think if we can just find our own identity within our team identity, I like our chances. And these guys in particular here, playing the backcourt for us, being on the perimeter, will do it by example. And I think they're quite capable of picking up some of the things that we need to do for this year for this team.
Coach, you also referenced the injuries, unfortunately, that you had to deal with. Edon only played one conference game. So did Chris Ledlum. I guess maybe I look at it as it was difficult to have to overcome that. But at the same time, you gained experience by playing players that maybe wouldn't have necessarily had as much of an opportunity in the rotation. So what's your takeaway from the dynamics that were in play last season?
Yeah, I think you're so right about that. It's an opportunity. Everything presents opportunities. And however we look at it, we're looking at it from the standpoint of what's there for us for this particular team at this moment in time. And we've been beneficiaries of certain situations where, the Siani Chambers, who emerged as a first-year player, it seems like 100 years ago now, but that occurred because of unfortunate circumstances, whether it's injuries or other situations where players are out, and there are opportunities there. And, we describe opportunities as, being disguised as hard work. And so we think that if we just work hard, we'll create some opportunities. And but you're right. You can't control the injuries. We eat on with only one conference game and Ledlum. And so, we'll figure it out as we go. But certainly having those guys back and healthy will give us a great chance.
Speaking of opportunities, what has it been like to monitor and evaluate this team, knowing that there are a lot of chances to maybe eat into the rotation this year for players that were here last year and also are some of the newcomers that you're adding into the mix?
I think that's what you like, as you begin seasons, at least I know we do. You like for things to be competitive. You like for everyone, we talk about a clean slate every year. So you want every player in your program to feel like there's nothing penciled in, regardless of who you are. Incoming kids, seniors, everyone has got to earn it all over again. And so that competition is there. We've had that within our practices and our program forever, and it's served us well as the season has gone on. And then certainly we're recognizing that whatever we look like, probably today is probably going to be a little different than where it's going to be later on in the season. That's just inevitable. And so as we can hopefully get experience out of these guys who are working hard now, maybe some may not play early, but if they continue to do things that they're capable of and staying competitive, again, opportunities sometimes present themselves in a variety of different moments.
Speaking of lighting some fire under your team and providing a spark, Coach, I hear that former President Barack Obama you had in as part of the Breakfast Club a little over a month ago to address the team. Did you accomplish what you wanted in terms of bringing in a high-profile individual, and what exactly was that experience like?
Well, I probably should have had a different background, but I wanted this background that I have right now for the man that's behind my shoulder there. And but we were really honored, as you can imagine, to have President Obama to visit with us here at Harvard and to visit with our team and to have this being one of the more meaningful moments for, I think the lives of our kids. I can't imagine that they won't remember this and think of this as a meaningful moment in their lives for the rest of their lives, to be able to have that moment, to have the former president and a Harvard man to address our Breakfast Club that we have. And we were more than honored, more than proud. And certainly his messages are, he's one of the great orators of all time, as you can imagine. And so his opportunity to speak to our group and our players was one that we'll remember forever.
Coach, I want to bring in some of your players to further the conversation. And Edon, let's start with you. I was just talking with Coach about the fact, unfortunately, you only played in one conference game. What was that like for you, both mentally and physically, to have to unfortunately watch from the sidelines last season? And how much more motivated are you to get back on the court and contribute this year?
Nice to meet you. last year was definitely tough, watching from the sidelines. But my teammates were nothing but positive with me. And we had a goal at hand that we had to sort of take care of. And that's what we went into every practice, every game trying to accomplish. So given, I wasn't able to be on the court with my teammates and help them on the court, and practice vocally as a leader, I was there for them and I was trying to help them accomplish their goal. That was the main objective last year for me.
In addition to doing what you just laid out, I find it always interesting when I speak to players coming back from injury. Maybe they learn something about themselves by not being on the court. Maybe they notice a facet of the team or a facet of their game. When you had an opportunity to maybe step back and reflect, what at all did you learn about yourself that you can apply to things moving forward here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that given the adversity that I went through personally last year, I think being able to keep my head on straight, it's just staying really positive and trying to help my guys. I learned that that with my teammates and with their help and with coaches' help, I think that a lot of our goals were very possible. You know what I mean? And I think that that staying positive throughout the whole process really helped me and helped my mental health moving forward. And I think that's something that I could take into this year for sure.
Luka, I want to bring you into the conversation. The fact that the guy right next to you is coming back, Chris Ledlum. How excited is that for somebody like yourself when you realize, yes, there's some incoming freshmen, first-year players, but you're also bringing back some experience that you weren't able to tap into much last season?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're my teammates, but they're also some of my, best friends in my life. And we've been together now this is our 4th year. So just seeing them on the sidelines last year hurt me personally too. I know how much work they put in, how much they care and love about the game. So seeing them on the sidelines was painful for all of us. And we all know how much they bring to the floor, what they can do, how they can help our team. So, finally having them back with us, really excited, even in practice, is just super fun just to play with them again. And I know that Len and Don are going to be amazing additions again to our team and can really help us achieve our goals this year.
I was talking earlier with Coach Amaker that one person in particular is not going to replace Noah Kirkwood. I think the two of you both fully understand this, and I'm curious your perspective on this. But as members of the backcourt, what do you need to do to help set the tone without somebody like Noah in the equation anymore? And Luka, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a team effort. I mean, we realize when one guy can't win an Ivy League title, they can't win the conference. It has to be a collective effort. We have to lead by example. We've been around for the longest. We know what coach wants, what he expects from us, and just work together, trust each other. That's big in our program, the word trust. And I feel like we know what we're capable of. We know, the talent, the skills we have on our team. And I think if we all just, again, work together and trust one another, that we're going to accomplish what we want to accomplish this year.
Yep.
And how about you, Edon? Yeah.
Yeah, to speak to that, I mean, coach is always speaking about his backcourt and how he wants us to quarterback our team and sort of be the leaders on the court and off the court for him. And I think, I've been playing with this guy since freshman year. We've been battling in practice. We've been on the same team in practice as well as Ledlum. So, we're really excited to sort of put everything together that we've worked on for the past 3 to 4 years and let it come together. You know what I mean? This is our senior season. It's time to make it happen.
We're setting the stage for the upcoming season for the Harvard Crimson. In the meantime, any media members, just a reminder, if you have any questions, please use the raise hand function and we will bring you into the conversation if you have any questions. Edon, I want to piggyback off of what you just brought up in terms of you and Luka have been here for so long as a senior leader in particular, and you mentioned conversations you've had with coach. How much do you take the onus on this season, now that you're back on the court, to be more of a vocal leader in terms of getting this team to play at a specific level?
I'd say I take a huge onus. There's expectations at hand, and that's the reality of things, as well as Luka. It's great that I have someone like him to share the responsibilities with. He's a great leader. And I'm really excited to do it with him and with coach as well, being our main quarterback. You know what I mean? And but I'm excited.
Well, hey, you look at his resume, he played basketball and he knew what it was like to orchestrate traffic, as I'm sure you could attest to from watching some of the old videotape in terms of his basketball days. And we'll maybe save that conversation for a later time as we got Coach smiling here. We'll bring in members of the media. First up is John Title of Hoops HD. John, welcome aboard. What do you got for us?
Excellent. Good afternoon, Coach. Two questions. One is about scheduling. What kind of a meaningful moment do you expect when you head to Morehouse in a few weeks? And secondly, as somebody who was recruited by Coach Krzyzewski 4 decades ago, what is it like for you to be part of a college basketball world that does not have him as an active participant?
Sorry there. John, thank you. Appreciate that thought and that question. First of all, with Morehouse, it is, you nailed it when you said meaningful. We've tried to find different moments in our schedule and our program to create meaningful moments, and to have an opportunity to return the game down in Atlanta against Morehouse and do things around that game at that historic institution and an HBCU. That's been part of our plan forever, for a long time. We have the vision of participating in games like this with HBCUs, and not only to play them, but to play them on their respective campuses and their environments and their cities and their towns, and to bring Harvard there, which is something that we're proud to do. And we're going to have that as an opportunity to bring Harvard and Morehouse alums together to collaborate, create, have an opportunity to, hopefully that will spur other ideas on between the two institutions, which we've done with the Howard game. Now we see more of Harvard and Howard contests, different things that has happened. We've learned about the history of both institutions through that way. So very meaningful, and I'm glad and appreciative of you bringing that up. But we opened the season at Morehouse, which will be something that will matter a lot and be very meaningful to both institutions and both programs. In reference to Coach K, yeah, you're talking a long time that he's been a part of the fabric of college basketball and basketball in general, as a leader on the sideline and as a voice in the sport. Hopefully that won't ever change for him as a voice, to continue to give his wisdom and his knowledge and his ways of helping things get better. I'm sure he'll continue to do that, but certainly it will be something he's deserved to have the opportunity to sit back and enjoy his moments now with his family and watching basketball through a different lens for the first time. But someone have an opportunity to have been recruited by him, to play for him, and to work for him. I'm very proud of those moments that I've had to be a part of that with him.
John, thanks so much. Let's go to David Tannenwald of Harvard Magazine. David.
Hey guys, this is a question for Luca and Idan, and it came up with Coach a little bit, but I was wondering if you guys can talk about the experience of the Breakfast Club with President Obama and what you learned from the experience and took from it.
I mean, the Breakfast Club as a whole, I could speak for the whole team on this, has left an indelible impression on all of our lives. I think that the opportunity to be in the rooms with some of the people that Coach has brought to the Breakfast Club, the network that he's allowed us to enter is extremely, extremely important, and something that we will have for the rest of our lives. I think we've had presidents of the United States and mayors and senators, and our ability to meet those people and just have genuine conversations with them has been extremely important for sure.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that a little bit, I think the biggest thing for us is, not taking it for granted. Sometimes, like every month, Coach brings in someone new, and they're just huge names. They're such, amazing figures in our world. And when we walk around campus and we talk to different teams, different athletes, they're all like, wow, we wish we had that experience with our team. And just taking a step back and realizing like how amazing these things are that Coach is doing for us is really big on our team. And yeah, like Idan said, some of the people and the rooms that we're in because of the Breakfast Club is truly life-changing. And I know we're super grateful to be a part of it.
David, thank you so much. Let's go to Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Jonathan?
It was going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah.
We were going to go back to the high time.
Jonathan, great to Great to hear from you.
It's been a while. I'd like
Yes,
to get
sir.
back up to Boston this season if I can. Look, the polls, the preseason polls only mean so much, but is it just a little extra something after what happened last season to say, hey, we've got to step up to take here,
Yeah, Jonathan, I'm not even aware of what the poll is. No offense to anybody who's made that possible or voted on that. We've never, that's one of the things that's been really good about our program and our players, and we've tried to instill this from day one, that we've never been concerned with what anything is on the outside of us in our program. All those things we refer to as external, and I'm sure most coaches, and if not all coaches, subscribe, to that theory and philosophy as well. But I'm just saying to you that I don't even know where the polls would say what they mean or however that works. But I just know that we're trying to work hard to become an outstanding basketball team. And that's the philosophy we have. So it's a daily process and grind for us. And that's all that we really evaluate, Jonathan. And at the end of the day, we just want to feel good about us. And, and that's a healthy way of looking at things, because whatever is written, said, or ranked, and I mean this in a way, even when it's, written, said, and ranked possibly as, you're the greatest in sliced bread. We still don't have the energy or the bandwidth to, get wrapped up into that, to even know what that is. And so we've done our job as teachers and as coaches to try to make sure that we instill that in our players. Is that possible to keep them completely out of earshot of everything, social media? It probably isn't in today's world, but they know when they come to us and come to Levites and, our environment of Harvard basketball, it's about the here and the now. And the only things that we really, truly care for are our identity, our goals, and our standards. And so everything else is for everyone else.
Thanks, Tommy. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it. Coach Amaker, Edon, Luca, greatly appreciate the time and the insight. Looking forward to seeing the team up close and personal this year, and best of luck.
Thank you so much, Lance. Wonderful. Thank you.
You got it.
Good job, guys.
Will take on Morehouse College in their first game of the season. November 7th tip-off is set for 5 p.m. Eastern, as that is a look at the Harvard Crimson entering the 2022-23 campaign. From Harvard, we move to their travel partner, the Dartmouth Big Green. Finished last season 5th in the conference with a 6-8 record, 9-16 overall. They played a lot of close games and did win 4 of their last 5 contests. So we bring in the head coach of the Big Green, Dave McLaughlin, along with senior forward Dave Medelican and sophomore guard Ryan Cornish. Coach, good to see you. Welcome aboard. Thanks so much for joining us here on the 2022 Men's Basketball Media Day. Let's start with some opening comments from you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate everyone's time. Appreciate everyone being on the call. And Ryan and Dame, so glad you guys are here. I know how busy you are with practice and work. So I'm really glad that you get to represent our program. This is always a special time of year, right? Because you're trying to figure out who you are as a group. No one really knows exactly who they are right now. And I think that's the journey we've been on. And especially where, we lost 5 seniors that are all playing, whether it's professionally or as a graduate student. So that's pretty significant. So maybe last year at this time, we might have known a little more about ourselves, even though we're coming off COVID, because there are guys that have had a lot of minutes on the court. Now we're in a position where that's not necessarily the case. So practice has been, for me, really, really fun. I'm not sure if these guys would define it as fun as well, but for me, it's been really fun because we're finding out new things about our team every day. And instead of me giving them an identity, it's more, let's figure out what our identity is and let's figure out what we want to be excellent in, what we want to be really, really good in, because you can't be excellent in everything. And I think they've really, I feel comfortable with how they've responded to that. And I'm excited about how we're going to continue to grow. We've been a very different team every week so far. And I think we'll be a very different team next week. And I think we'll be a very different team the week after. And I think that's a very exciting thing for a head coach.
Coach, it's very interesting to hear you talk about the evolution of your team, because as I referenced as we were welcoming you in, I would argue you could say you were playing some of your best basketball late last season. But as you mentioned, you lost a lot of firepower. So how much momentum in your mind do you even take from the end of last season with so many different movable parts now this year?
Yeah, I think momentum is what you create every day. I don't think it goes from season to season. I think there's way too much that happens in the off season, and way too much that happens in the summer. And I think it's really what your momentum is going to start when you start practice and when you start workouts. And our momentum is going to begin with how our seniors approach every day, how our leaders approach every day, and then everyone else should reflect that attitude and effort. And I think, that's where we want to kind of restart that momentum rather than carry it off from last year.
I referenced that you did lose your top 3 scorers. So as you're evaluating the team during practice, what are you looking for to make up and fill the voids left behind by the Brendan Barrys, the Taurus Samuels, the Aaron Rise, for example, last season?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is really putting the guys in the right positions. You can't just say who's a scorer and who's not, who's going to pick up the slack. It's okay, what positions are we putting you in? What are your strengths, which we have a good feel for each of you? Where are your areas of improvement? Let's play to your strengths, okay, based on how we're playing, what we're doing. Great, that looks terrific. This is where we want you to have the ball. This is where we need the ball for us to be successful. This is how we think we want to attack other teams. So that is part of the evolution as well, is saying, yeah, we have a feeler of guys who can make certain shots and guys who can make certain plays. And then there are guys who can make plays without drawing something up for them, right? And those guys are just important. So it's that collection of figuring out what that is for your current group.
I referenced you played a lot of highly contested games last season. And Coach, I do not mean to pour salt into your wounds by bringing up this statistic, but I just want to emphasize the point: 9 losses by 2 or fewer possessions. So the bottom line is you were in just about every single game. The team that does return, the players, what do they learn from going through those battle-tested situations last season?
Yeah, the importance of execution, right? It all comes down to decisions, details, and discipline. And it's just the importance of that. And we probably show video almost every day. And to some extent, we're going to be talking about habits and the simple things and execution and details, because a closeout at 16:48 of the first half is the same thing as a bad closeout with 48 seconds left, and that causes a 2-possession loss. There's no difference. And if you as a team can buy into that, and if we as a coaching staff are doing a good enough job explaining that early on, that execution, that ability to make great decisions, to have great discipline, and to really say that details are paramount in the way you play, you have to start that foundational teaching and foundational piece of your program at this point of the year.
Playing a lot of meaningful games late last season in that race for the 4th seed, what do you think that prepares your team, or what feeling do you think that gives the returning players that, hey, you were just right there, especially in the last few weeks of the season?
Belief. I think belief. I think that's one of our core values, and we have to believe in the direction we're headed. We have to believe in what we're doing allows us to win games and compete, and a belief that people know we're coming into the gym, or they're coming into our gym, and they have to be ready to play us.
When we talk about the fact that it's been fun for you and challenging as a coach to monitor this team, how beneficial is non-conference play, Coach, specifically this year? Not to say that it's never important, but the fact that you're still trying to identify what you have in your team and define roles and so forth.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important. I mean, that's why you don't start with conference play. You need to figure out who your team is to a certain degree. And for us, I think you have to be willing. It's okay to make mistakes early. It's okay for guys to learn how to play together. It's okay to try new things. You have to be willing to understand part of your identity and part of finding out who you are, that formation of that identity. It doesn't have to equate to wins. It has to equate to progress. And in a non-conference slate, progress is the most important thing.
Coach, I want to bring your players into the conversation as well. Certainly appreciate your insight thus far. Dame and Ryan, first of all, thanks for hopping on with us. And Damon, Ryan, I want to pose the same question I just posed Coach a little bit earlier in terms of how competitive you were late last season, the fact that you won 4 of 5. Dame, let's start with you. Since you are one of those returning players, what do you take away from that experience?
I think I personally take away just like a bunch of confidence. I feel like it proved to us that we can compete with any team in this league. And going in, we just sort of have this chip on our shoulder. Like we're just ready to compete with anybody we see this year.
And Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, kind of same as Dame said. I think kind of shows our grit, how we fight through no matter how the season's going. I think we really did a good job of stepping up towards the end of the season, and hopefully that carries on.
I'm curious your perspective and what you've been observing during the course of practice, because I saw the both of you react when Coach said, well, it's been challenging and fun for him. It may not be necessarily fun for you. What has it been like, the fact that there's a lot of competition and a lot of roles up for grabs this season? Ryan, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would just say it's been amazing. The competition's been amazing. I think we've been pushing each other to the limits every day. So I would just say just the competition has helped us so much, and it's going to only be better and better for us when it comes to the season.
Dave?
Yeah, to go on top of that, it's definitely been very competitive. We've been playing a lot more live versus previous years. We do a lot more X's and O's and things along those manners. So we've been playing a lot of live, a lot of physicality. It's been like definitely been fun, but definitely has been competitive and tough.
Well, I'm glad you just outlined what it's been like. I'm curious, Dame, let's start with you. What do you think the identity ultimately will be of this team? Not to say that you have a crystal ball, but maybe as we get a few games into the season and we start to approach Ivy League play, what do you think this unit will look like?
As Coach Max said earlier, identity is definitely something we're building day by day. We don't probably have a solidified one as of now, but I believe with the direction Coach wants our team to go, I believe our identity will be execution. I believe we'll be a team where it's a close game and going off the previous tough losses we have, we know how to calm down, know how to take a breath and execute a right play, a right defensive matchup, a right ball screen coverage, and make a right play to win a game.
And Ryan, piggybacking off of what Dame just said, how much of those little things, the nuances of the game, do you learn from what you went through late down the stretch in games last season?
I think we learn a lot. I mean, you notice in the small error games or the small games that we lose by, it'll be the little details that matter, and it all comes back to the little details. So we just take it every day, step by step in practice, and then we really focus on these little details. And I would just say, like, our core value or core principle is being toughened together. So no matter what happens, make a little detail, we move on to the next play, and we play to stay together.
The fact that last season, even though I mentioned you lose your top 3 scorers, there was balance, though, if you look at the roster. And maybe on any given night, somebody else could go off. How much does that versatility, Ryan, benefit what you bring over perhaps from last season, just observing what the top scorers did and how you can go about duplicating that success this season?
I think they were just great leaders overall. So we have a lot to learn from them, and we learned a lot from them. So I would just say all of the guys on our team can play, and we can really go. So we have such a deep team this year, and I just think that being said, we all have a chance to really do well in this league.
Dame, what was your takeaway in terms of the depth and makeup of the team based on what Ryan was just saying?
I believe that once again, we had very great leaders last year, but I feel like with the work needed, we do have the capabilities to fill in the roles they've had and learn from what they've told us. We have a statement saying we want to be a developmental program at Dartmouth. So we want to build on the legacies our previous people have gave us. So we want to learn and do more than what our previous leaders have had. So I feel like we are in a position to grow from what they've done for us and fill in their roles and potentially exceed them.
We're previewing the upcoming campaign for the Dartmouth Big Green. A reminder to media members, if you have a question, please use the raise hand function, and we will certainly look to get you involved in this breakdown of Dartmouth. Coach, I want to bring you back into the conversation. When you look at the structure of the league last season, it was our first time in which we didn't have back-to-back games every single weekend. It was a little bit more spaced out. You had some weekends where it was just one game. What did that do to alter how you went about philosophically speaking to prepare your team and what you took away from that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing would be you can concentrate more on yourself. You know, when you play Friday, Saturday, you are preparing the entire time. You might digest the previous weekend on Monday. You're certainly digesting it on Sunday, either with your staff or by yourself, but you get to spend more time on your group with those single games. And you get to spend more time with guys, more time on skill development, more one-on-one time. It just allows you, for me, it allows that relationship piece to be that much more paramount, which is important to me, important to our program. But it also allows that preparation piece for your team and concentrating your team one step more. That one day versus 2 games, it makes the biggest difference with that.
Well, and I would think from your standpoint, especially the travel that your team has to go through compared to the rest of the league, given the distance, that maybe some alleviation from that standpoint. How much did that play into it at all?
A little bit, but teams have to travel here too, right? So it goes both ways. But I think that, we're never going to look at that as anything but, hey, we have to travel. Teams have to come here. How are we going to be the most ready? And it doesn't matter. So we're getting home at 4 a.m. What have we done that week to prepare for that? And what have we done that week? And what are we going to do the next 3 days to make sure our bodies recover? So I think if you strategically plan for the travel, you should be good. But yes, it's awesome that they had a little less travel time, more rest, more time to concentrate on being true student athletes, concentrate on the development of their own game, concentrate on the relationships with their teammates and with other people on campus. I thought that was great for them.
Coach, I want to bring back the players because Ryan and Dame, I think it's important for you to reflect on what Coach just mentioned, because you were the ones that went through the change in schedule when you've already previously experienced a lot of back-to-back games. What was it like adjusting to that? And did you think that helped in terms of getting through the grind of the lengthy season? Ryan, let's start with you.
Well, I didn't get to really experience the real schedule. So with the new schedule, I mean, I guess we traveled. We didn't have much traveling, and we spent a lot of time recovering, practicing more. I think it just helped as a team overall. Helps the guys get closer as well.
And Dame, how about you?
I definitely believe that not having peer back-to-backs did have some recovery and mental advantages. I feel like it made a lot more games a little bit more intense, is knowing that you could fully scout, fully put your entire mental energy into one game. Really sort of allowed us to really attack certain games. But also the back-to-back thing, I feel like it's just an Ivy League type of thing. It's part of why we play here. It's a great feeling. You just get over a tough game on Friday, pack up your boots, and it's I've got to play again on Saturday. So it's just sort of a grit test. Overall, we just like to play. We could play 3 games in a row. It doesn't really matter. We just like to play over here.
Well, there's no doubt about it. It prepares you for adversity from that standpoint. And Coach, I want to bring you back into the conversation because speaking of evaluating this team that we were talking about earlier, who at all has maybe jumped out to you from last season's roster, some of the newcomers that we should look out for, as there's a lot of changes from top to bottom with respect to your group?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something we try to evaluate every day, really looking at the entire roster. I think that 2 of the guys are right here on the screen that are playing well, and but also 2 of the guys that were holding the most accountable out there. I think that there's been a lot and a lot of names, and probably too many to mention to go through. But what I feel is that a lot of guys had good summers. There's an old phrase, players are made in the summer. And that phrase came from when there was no full year basketball, right? There's, you didn't have where you had individual work in June and July and August, and you had to be places and as a college player. And we're still that way in this league, which I think is absolutely terrific. And, we had a lot of guys that worked on their game this summer. And that's why when these guys say practice has been competitive, because guys are proud of that. They want to show it. They want to compete. So not to skirt the question by any means, but there's a lot of guys. I think it would be unfair for me to single a few guys out when I feel like a lot of guys have improved their game from last year, and a lot of guys are just competing at a good level right now.
Well, Coach, as a quick follow-up, though, let's at least focus on the 2 guys that are on the screen so we can at least pinpoint. Ryan coming off a freshman campaign where he contributed immediately, and Dame certainly a presence both from a scoring standpoint or rebounding standpoint. What specifically jumped out to you about these 2 players and where they could take their game this season?
Yeah, I think initially we can start with Dame. I think, he came back in very, very good shape. He really worked on his body this summer. And he's on a mission a little bit to prove, the last 10 games last year, those numbers weren't a fluke. Those were legitimate numbers and they're really good numbers. And he has to do that. He anchoring a defense in certain ways, whether it's rebounding, whether it's coverages, whatever it might be. I think that's really important. And he's, really being willing to step to the challenge. He's in there watching film all the time. Both of these guys are. So that's really good to see. With Ryan, it's about, how diverse he can be on the court in terms of playing multiple positions and having the ball in his hands versus having the ball out of his hands, being a scoring threat with the ball, without the ball. And those are signs of good players, guys that can do that. And that's his, main evolution, is being able to do that, yet withstanding the physicality of a full season. And because of the way he plays, a little recklessly, and I mean that in a really good way, be able to withstand the physicality that comes with that nature of playing basketball.
Coach McLaughlin, Ryan, Dame, greatly appreciate the time and the insight. Looking forward to seeing the team this season, and best of luck.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Take care, as Dartmouth will open up the season for the first time when it travels to the Bronx to take on Fordham Monday, November 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern. From the Big Green, we transition to the Yale Bulldogs, who won Ivy Madness last season, represented the conference in the NCAA tournament, as they were there for the third time since 2016. And to see what to expect out of this Bulldogs team, which certainly made a very strong impression during the regular season and the postseason, we are joined by their head coach, James Jones, along with senior forward Isaiah Kelly and guard Michael Feinberg. Coach, always good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us here on Basketball Media Day. I will offer you the floor to begin with some opening comments. Coach, I believe you're still on mute there. You may want to take yourself off of mute.
Yeah,
there you go.
I just did. So Lance, great to be on with you. Thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to speak with you this morning. We're excited. We're just getting to practice. We've just had our practice number 17 today, and still learning about this team. It's always new and interesting each and every year. But as I said, we're excited, looking forward to the year. And guys are battling practice, and we as coaches are trying to figure out who are the guys that are going to be leading us on and off the court. And again, just really looking forward to what's going to happen for us going forward this season.
Depth certainly was a benefit for your team last season. And the reason I bring that up, Coach, not easy, though, to replace Azar Swain and Jalen Gabadon, who have meant so much to your program. What's that process been like as you try to navigate filling in for those two in particular?
Well, as some of the other coaches have talked about, we don't ever try to replace anybody. I think what's great about our program is we've gotten to the point where there's always another guy just waiting in the wings to have an opportunity. Non-conference, we'll probably play 9-10 guys a game, but by the time we get in conference play, that gets down to 8 or 9. So now when there are 1 or 2 guys that don't have an opportunity to play them that are really good players. If I look at my team this year, I would tell you that I have about probably 13 guys, 14 guys that I could put in a game and feel good about. But I can't play 14 guys in the game. So there's always somebody else ready to step up. And we had a lot of those guys last year. They get a chance to play, and they're chomping at the bit. And now there are opportunities to step up and be a Yale Bulldog. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they lead us.
I mentioned 3 appearances in the NCAA tournament since 2016. So, Coach, clearly you have been able to implement a very successful stretch here. How much do the players year in and year out notice there are opportunities every single year because of the fact that you've had a relatively deep rotation? And how much does last season's success help foster that, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's a winning culture that we've been able to produce. So, guys believe in what we're doing. They believe in what we try to teach them every day in practice. They go out, they play the best of their ability every day. And, we have 3 things that we want to do in Yale basketball. We want to defend, we want to rebound, and we want to share the ball. And we feel if we don't do those 3 things at a high level, we're going to be really good. Now, last year, we didn't share the ball real well. We had led the league in assists for like 6 or 7 straight years up until last year, but we were the best defensive team in the league. And we were the best rebounding team in the league. So, being able to go out and feed off those 3 things have been something that united our program, and it continues to do so today.
And how important is that staple, especially when we're going to talk to Isaiah Kelly? He's certainly one guy that fits that bill in terms of presence inside, that you can win games with your defense if need be, and then other games it can be more of an offensive clinic, having that versatility to rely on.
Well, again, the players each year tell us what we're going to do and how we're going to play. So depending on what we have in our arsenal of players and how they play together, we figure out as a coaching staff what's the best tempo for our team. So if you look at our team over the course of the last 10 years, like there's some of Mieoni's team, very fast pace. You average 85 points a game, because of the personnel that we had. So year in and year out, we'll figure out who we have and how best to play. And our guys, again, there's a lot of trust in our program and belief in what we do. And, as a coaching staff, we just need to figure out how to put the guys in the right position to be successful.
Speaking of finding out how to put the players in position and maybe others stepping up, I want to highlight 2 in particular that stood out to me. Matt Noling and Bez Mbang, coach, last season showed some nice flashes, and you got some nice production out of them. What are you hoping to see out of those 2 in particular moving forward here?
Well, continue growth, right? Matt Noling has been great at the basket. He's got a feathery touch in and around the rim. We expect him to progress. I expect him to be a better defensive player this next year. Bez Mbang, I expected his offense to evolve. In the finals, I believe he had a double-double against Princeton. So I'm expecting that to continue to grow and as well as everybody else on the team. But certainly those 2 guys we need to add. They added stuff to their bag, and now it's a chance to go out and show it.
Before we bring in the players into the conversation, Coach, you've been a presence for many, many years in this league. You know how competitive it is. You know that there's so many close games. I'm curious, when you look at the preseason poll, Penn was picked first. You were right behind them. What do you make of the dynamics of this year's league? And is there maybe perhaps a little added motivation that you, as the team that won Ivy Madness, perhaps is not necessarily in the preseason polls mind the team to watch out for?
Yeah, I don't have any idea who picks, who the people who select are. I'm not certain how much they know about our team or the other teams. I don't know. I know that there are 2 media people from each school that voice their opinion. I will tell you that, I take note of most everything. Over the years, I think there's something like 14 of the last 16 years, we finished ahead of where we were picked. So if that's the case, we're going to finish in first or second place, which is good. So, they don't normally get us right. So we want to go out and work hard and, away from whatever we're picked, we're just going to go out and work hard and try to prove ourselves to be the best basketball team that we can be.
See, I thought I was the one bringing the statistics to the table. Coach Jones, okay, I'll yield to you. 14 of the 16 last times. Boy, that rolled right off the tongue there. I like it. I
might have just made that up, Lance. It's something like that. I might have made that one up.
It sounded good, though. So I'm going to take it as some substance behind your words as I now bring in some of the players.
You have to say it with conviction. It means more.
There you go. Absolutely. You put your stamp on it. I bought it. I'm buying it. I'm investing in it. Oh, Coach, always good to have a back and forth with you. We'll bring you back into the conversation a little bit. I want to bring the players into the conversation. Isaiah, let's start with you. I was just talking with Coach about how this team performed very well from a defensive standpoint. And when I think of defense, I certainly think of your presence as well. What do you think of will be the identity of this year's team, especially based on what you will contribute?
I would say the guys are pretty much gonna do whatever coach says. We try to live by those 3 principles: defend, share the ball, and rebound. So I would say probably that. We got some really good defenders on the team. Matt Noling, Bez. If I want to include myself in that list, I think we got some guys that could really lock down some people, depending on in all different areas of the floor. Down low, outside. There's a really great perimeter defender, so excited for it.
Well, speaking of defense, you were second to the Ivy League in blocks per contest. You clearly made your presence felt. I'm curious, what are you looking to refine within your game, Isaiah, entering this season?
Just being more consistent on both ends of the floor. Just providing whatever the team needs. That was kind of my goal in my head last year, is just do whatever the team needs to win. So I would say become a better, more.
Isaiah, it looks like your screen froze. So we're going to try to jump back to you, assuming the technology does cooperate. In the meantime, let's bring in Michael into the conversation. And Michael, we were talking about the dynamics of this team, especially with Coach. What have you observed in terms of what you bring back from last season and how guys just naturally, especially within the years that you've been here with the program, know how to fill roles and assume different dynamics within the makeup of the team?
Yeah, so great question. I think we have an exceptionally interesting squad this year, a great combination of underclassmen and experience. Last year, we had a lot of younger guys that had to kind of learn the ropes, but now people are coming out incredibly comfortable, confident, and really buying into the chemistry overall, defensively and offensively. So I think it's really exciting to see early on. And I can't wait just to get rolling with these guys. First game in a couple of weeks, and it's been incredible to see it in practice, a couple of scrimmages here and there. So it's been fun.
What does that mean for the competition from an internal standpoint, Michael? When you look at practices and you're only competing against one another, to see some of the guys that I talked about that you lost, like Swain, like Abaddon, guys know there's opportunities up for grabs, but also a lot of players bring back some experience from last season.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a big loss losing a guy like Azar and Jalen, no doubt. But I think guys embrace that opportunity and they buy into more of a collective unit of everybody buying in, absorbing a little bit more in their respective roles and filling that void, from a production standpoint, but also doing the intangibles necessary to win, getting on the floor, being gritty, boxing out, rebounding, et cetera, taking charges. So.
What about from a leadership standpoint, Michael, when you lose players like that, who were also, I'm sure, vocal presences both on and off the court, how does that navigate moving forward here in terms of guys knowing when to step up, guys knowing also when to take a step back? Is that a natural process? Is that something that needs to be pushed out of certain guys? What have you seen with respect to that?
I think we have a lot of natural born leaders here on the team. Just speaking for my class, the senior class here, and we got EJ Jarvis, myself, Isaiah, Matt Cotton, a couple other guys who really played key roles here who aren't even seniors, but have embraced that leadership position. And so I think we have a bunch of guys who are really bought into moving as one, as a unit. And I think we have an abundance of leadership here.
Isaiah, I want to bring you back into the conversation. We're hoping, keeping our fingers crossed, that technology cooperates, because I didn't mean to interrupt. I know you were reflecting on what you were refining in terms of your skill set. I also want to bring up the fact that you were the recipient of the Bill Madden Toughness Award. What did that recognition mean to you? And how much do you think that fits your profile and the style of your play?
Yeah, great question. It meant a lot just to know that buying in pays off. I try to do everything the coaches tell me to do on and off the court. I try to be a leader. So, and also try to set an example for the younger dudes to follow my footsteps. I think it's a good thing that I won the award, but also at the same time, I think everybody 1 through 17 or how many ever guys we had on the team last year could have won it. Yeah, just buying in toughness, I think is a key thing, and that might be our fourth thing that we focus on during games. It's just toughness.
Toughness and buying in, I find, are two very interesting phrases that you utilize that I think apply to you, because you look at your role last season, Isaiah. You started 27 games. Your role clearly expanded. How much do you think you're a great example of what players that are coming in after you can notice? Hey, you work hard, you play tough. Coach is going to acknowledge it, and therefore you're going to be rewarded accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all college basketball. If you just do what the coach says and play your hardest, you're gonna find a role somewhere. You just got to try to fit in as best you can. And I learned that from the older guys above me. Yeah, yeah, great leadership on the teams before me. I had Blake Reynolds as a captain my freshman year, and he taught me a lot just about working on doing what coach says, knowing your game, learning your game, and just figuring stuff out. So,
Well, having your shot blocking presence and your length doesn't hurt too. You got to give yourself a little bit of credit in terms of your style of play. We'll open it up to some media questions as well as we are previewing the 2022-23 Yale Bulldogs. And to start off the festivities, we are joined by Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Jonathan?
Thanks, Lance. Hi, James.
Hey, Jonathan, how you doing?
Doing well, man. How are you?
Terrific.
How was scheduling for this season coming out of the pandemic and with you guys being as good as you've been the last few years, able to get obviously the big trip to Hawaii, but the Ivy League's getting to the point to be one of those mid-majors that the big guys don't want to play anymore because they might lose. So what was it like?
Yeah, it was really difficult. When I first got to Yale, I would be done with my scheduling for the next year by September of the previous year. So this time right now, 10 years ago, my schedule had already been done for the following year. It's been very difficult. The only reason why we're going to Hawaii is because we had 3 teams that we played home and home all drop us. Because of that, I couldn't find 3 teams to play us home and home. So we have to go all the way to Hawaii just to play 3 games. We have Kentucky on the schedule, which is tremendous. We have Butler on the schedule, it's great, in Colorado. So we have a nice mix, and I'm amazed that we were able to put it together. But we haven't been able to get any of the local mid and high major teams to play us. We have Fairfield on the schedule this year because Paul Slickman, the AD, is a friend. He used to be an associate AD here. Will be our first game that we will play in a state of Connecticut against a team in Connecticut since we beat UConn in 2015. So it's been a very difficult struggle. I would much rather play some teams closer to home. I don't really want to go to Colorado and because we don't have any members on our team from out there. We normally take those ships to get guys home. We don't have anybody from Kentucky either. But those are the 2 places that would actually play us. I would much rather play those games locally against some of the teams, some of the high major teams in our area, but we just can't get those. It's very difficult to put together. But I'm fortunate we did. And we've already begun work on next year. And hopefully by this time next year, we'll have it set.
There are worse places to go than Hawaii, all things considered.
No question. No. Listen. It's a long plane ride for big people.
Thanks, James. It's great to talk to you.
Say again?
It's great to talk to you. Thanks.
You as well.
Jonathan, appreciate the question. Coach, I want to piggyback off of that point because I think the success of the Ivy League, and clearly as a product of your team, has made it challenging because other teams from the Power 5 may say, well, I don't benefit much from playing at school like the Ivy League. They gain a lot if they beat us, and if we lose, we get criticized. How much do you think the improvement of this league, the depth of this league, has been sort of a positive and a negative that you try to walk that fine line with?
Well, that's certainly part of it, Lance. The other part is that the metrics have changed for a lot of the high major non-conference, where playing a team that was good like the Ivy League teams are, was good for your RPI and for your ranking. But now the metrics have changed for those leagues where they don't benefit from playing us at all. So they're going to go out and play teams that they're going to play lesser teams if they can because they're trying to get W's. So it's a curse. Obviously, we feel good that we've gotten to that point where people don't want to play us, but it just makes our job hard to try to find games.
What are you hoping to see out of your team during non-conference play this year to better prepare you for what you'll be going up against in the Ivy League?
What we do every year is we try to play the toughest schedule as we can put together so we can find some warts. I want to find things that I don't know about my team that I can't find out through practice. I want to be exposed somewhat in the non-conference where we can say, okay, we need to work on X, Y, and Z. Isaiah Kelly, Mike Feinberg, we need to do a better job at X, Y, and Z because what happened in the last game. Because, film doesn't lie. And we can, after those games, we'll sit down, we'll watch film, and we'll give our guys a chance to understand what they need to do to be better. And then the environments that we're going to play in. We're going to go play in Rupp Arena. There's not going to be an environment that's anything like that in our league. So if we can play in an environment like that and not be phased, we certainly shouldn't be phased when we play a tough game in our league when we go on a road and try to win a road game.
On a related note to the schedule, last season was the first time that we experienced this new format where you didn't have back-to-back games in conference play and you had one weekend where it was just one game. What was it like for you to adjust to that from a coaching standpoint?
Well, it wasn't that difficult to adjust to it. Obviously, you want to prepare your team. I have been doing this for, 22 straight seasons of being able to prepare our teams for 2 games back to back. And it's something that, we've been able to become very good at in understanding what our work week is like. Because again, it's just duplicating what we've done in the past. So now that it was one game at a time at certain time, it just made it easier. Like it would have been different if it would have gone to 2 games. That would have been if we were just going to go back to back for the first time. But since it became a 1-game thing and 2 games every now and again, it just made our jobs a little easier.
Well, I guess the reason I asked that, and I think you bring up an interesting point, if you would have had back-to-back games after never experiencing that, I think that is a bigger adjustment. But when you have to prepare for 2 games back-to-back and you have to divvy up which assistants are going to focus on the scout and so forth, I guess how much does that maybe make it a little bit easier, especially when you get the same team a little bit later on in the season and you can only focus on them as opposed to 2 teams simultaneously?
Yeah, like a lot of what we do though in our week prior to a game is work on us, right? So we work on Yale basketball a lot and try to become the best that we are. Obviously we're going to go over the other team, but that's minimal. Our feeling is that we have to be our best versions of ourselves to be able to be successful. And if we can do that, we'll have a chance to win most games. So our preparation isn't to the point where it becomes cumbersome if we have 2 games or if we have 1 game. It's basically the same. As you said, it's a little easier because now I just have 1 game to focus on.
We're going to turn real quickly back to the media. Rob Brown from Ivy Hoops Online has a question. Rob?
Hi, Coach. Since Richard here, I'll ask. There was the Ivy League lost an antitrust protection recently in Congress, so potentially opening the door to athletic scholarships. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'll believe it if it happens. I've seen the news and how it's changed. I've been in this league a long time, and things churn very slowly here. It takes us 48 hours to watch 24 hours. So we'll see how it goes. It would certainly change the dynamic of our league quite a bit if that actually happened.
And on the other end, I know obviously scholarships being a big hurdle, but with all the conference realignment, like how much of an advantage is it to be in a conference that is pretty stable and also has longstanding coaches like yourself?
Yeah, it's the best mid-major conference in the country for that. We don't have very much turnover at all. I don't know how many. All that we've pretty much had in our league are grad transfers. There've been a few guys here and there that transferred. I haven't had a kid transfer with eligibility in my 23 years at Yale, and I don't believe it's going to change because of the new rules that we have. So being able to be stable, being able to have Mike Feinberg for now his 5th year and Isaiah Kelly now for his 5th year, that just makes us better. They're grown men that we're going to go out and we're going to play some freshmen. So kids that are 18 years old in some of these programs that we're going to go up against. So it certainly is an advantage for us.
Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome.
Rob, thanks for the question. Coach Jones, Michael, Isaiah, greatly appreciate the time and the insight. Great speaking with all of you, and I wish you the best of luck this season.
Have a good one, Rob. Have a good one, Lance.
Take care. That is the Yale Bulldogs. Their season kicks off Monday, November 7th, when they play host to Sarah Lawrence. From Yale, we now turn our attention to the Columbia Lions, a very young team last season, adding some new talent into the mix. And we are going to be hearing from head coach Jim Engels, as well as senior guard Cameron Shockley-Okeke, as well as junior forward Josh Odunowu, as I see plenty of familiar faces here on the screen. Coach, great to see you. Great to speak with you as always. I will open it up to you for opening remarks to get us going.
Lance, how are you? It's great to see you.
Doing well. Yes.
Yeah. Let's go Giants, baby. Come on. Right?
We may get into that a little bit later on here.
There we go. All right. It's been it's honestly been a really quick a couple of months here since school has started. Things have obviously, with all the challenges that we've had with COVID and all the different things that have happened over the last couple of years, it's been good to get back to some sort of normalcy for what we're trying to do. I thought last year was a good foundational piece for us. Obviously our record wasn't what we wanted it to be, but I thought we were able to build some really good culture things and use that as a stepping point for some experience here. Most of our guys played last year, quality minutes during the games. So I think practices this year have been much quicker, much more energetic. The teaching obviously is always going to be the same, but they have a sense of what the drills are now, and they've been able to help teach our four new guys coming in. So I think from the spring up until this point, I think the guys had a really productive summer, and socially, but also basketball wise. And it's been a really good competitive couple of weeks here.
Well, I want to start there because I think that's a great point. The word that comes to mind, Coach, to describe your unit is continuity, and how much more perhaps you have to work with this season in comparison to what you were talking about where you were last season. Having that nucleus, having that foundation while building some of the new guys in, how beneficial is that overall?
No, I mean, it's really important. Last year, it was definitely, we lost 6 seniors from COVID, then we had some seniors back, but we still didn't have a tremendous amount of experience. So the practices definitely it was starting from ground zero. It was really no experience in the gym. And it was definitely a challenge to get everybody on the same page. Now, the guys did an unbelievable job trying to pick things up. And, in the meetings that we had after the season, it was really, and I say this all the time, I have my 2 daughters and they don't listen to a word I say until they actually experience it. Right. And I told these guys all the time, you have no idea what the first game at Fordham is going to be like. And they're like, yeah. And then they didn't have any idea what the league was going to be like. And they're like, but they really got a good experience from it. They learned from it. And I think like I said, it's a good starting off point for us this year.
You referenced some of the challenges with COVID, but also the injuries. 2 players I want to highlight in particular, Liam Murphy and then Josh, who we have on the call with us. Getting those 2 guys back, what does that do for you on both sides of the basketball this season?
No, it's huge. Liam was disappointing because Liam was really starting to figure things out. His last game he played last year was against Princeton, and I think he was 1 for 7 from 3, and he was like 6 for 10 inside the line. And I was so proud of him because we've been really talking to him about not just being a shooter. He said that, his identity is that of a shooter. So he scored within the arc, and he was also able to start putting up some rebounding stats. And then unfortunately the next practice, he broke his hand. So we weren't able to build on that, but I thought it was a good, the learning experience that he had was something that I think he's been able to sort of transfer to this year. So that was great. And then Josh was, it was a scary situation. We, with COVID, no one knew how to handle all these different things. And Josh was really thrown into the mix quickly when Ike got hurt in the first game against Fordham. So then Josh came up, and we didn't really, to be totally honest, we weren't really sure because we were dealing with so many new guys. We weren't quite sure what we had on the whole roster. And he came in, and his energy and enthusiasm were infectious for us. And he was really starting to get into a flow. And then COVID hit, and we were worried that he was going to be shut down forever. So we were blessed to have him back, and he's been an unbelievable leader for us. And he's really become the heart of our team.
Speaking of players stepping up, Cam was another guy that I think took on a role last season. There were games where he shot lights out, gave you double-digit scoring. What impressed you the most in terms of his ability to step up and what you could build upon entering this season?
Yeah, and it's total credit to him. We were trying to build lineups. We were trying to build, stuff that we could layer into other things. And Cam had experience, but he hadn't played a ton up until last year. And I thought the best thing that came, and this is what happens, guys are always going to step up and surprise you with different things. He just came out, and he really just, with his confidence and his belief in what we were trying to do, he had an amazing stretch there. So, he's probably our best shooter coming back statistically. And, there's a lot of things for him to build off of there as well. So he was able to not only prove to himself, but also prove to everybody in the league that, he could be someone that has to be reckoned with.
Coach, we've been talking about this is a relatively young team still, and now you're adding 4 first-year players. You have 2 guards and 2 front court players. What excites you about this group, and how much of an impact do you think they can have right out of the gates?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to play a lot of guys. We still are very young. We have guys with experience now, which is great. We can build off that, but these 4 freshmen are going to play. And so we're trying to implement them. It's really the big thing we're talking about now is in practice is building chemistry, both offensively and defensively. The competition has been off the charts. So it's been very, very fun to watch. But then you have to take that competitive nature of, competing one-on-one and competing with your team and putting it into techniques and strategies and making sure you're competing in the right way so you can get the things you need to get accomplished. So we're still building that a little bit, but there's going to be a bunch of guys that can contribute for us. And I'm excited to see as we get into the games, like who can step up.
I want to bring Cam and Josh into the conversation. And guys, I want to piggyback off of just what Coach said in terms of what practices have been like, because you're infusing some new talent and then you have what you guys worked on last season. Cam, let's start with you. What's the competitive atmosphere been like in practice as you get set for the upcoming season?
Oh, it's been great. We got a lot of hungry guys on this team. Like Coach said, we didn't finish how we wanted to last year, but we're hungry to bounce back this year, really compete, get after it in practice, and it's going to lead to us competing and really attacking other teams on the court in games.
And Josh, I know, unfortunately, you had to be a spectator for the majority of last season. What was that like to go through that, both mentally and physically? And how anxious are you to get back on the court this season?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard, watching us lose and, I have no impact on, the loss or the win. So it was hard mentally, watching my guys go through what they went through, struggling every night out there. So, it was hard just, from a spectator standpoint, but I found strength in just being around the team and being there for my teammates when they needed me, whether that was in practice, grabbing them water, wiping up the floor, anything I could do just to help them. But I feel like it gave me a new perspective on basketball. Stuff could end any minute. You could get injured. Any unfortunate circumstance could happen to you. So I feel like it gave me a new light and a new energy that I could kind of bring to the team and bring to practice. Just for somebody that's experienced stuff that not a lot of people have experienced. So
I want to piggyback off of that because I find that interesting. I think any player not having the ability to be on the court, maybe it gives you a different perspective and it also allows you to reflect on your game. So what did you learn about yourself, maybe as a player, in terms of what you wanted to work on, what you wanted to refine while you were watching from afar, essentially, last season?
Honestly, I didn't learn too many new stuff because I feel like I'm very self-aware of my playing and what I need to work on and what I'm already good at. I think what I learned was how to lead from not being on the court and not like actually being on one of the 5 guys on the court. I think that's one of the main things that I learned is just how to lead and how to be there for my teammates, even when I might not be able to have the most impact on the court.
Well, Cam, you did have an impact on the court, but I'm sure you learned a lot about yourself because you took full advantage of your role. What do you attribute? You go back to last season. Why do you think you had that consistent production as your role expanded?
I think it's just about being prepared and being ready to step up at any moment. We got a lot of guys on this team who can contribute. And when you get that chance, you got to be ready. And I think at that point, when it was my time to step up, I was ready. So it wasn't anything I had to get ready for because I was already there.
The fact that this team, as we were just talking with Coach Engels about, is still relatively young and you're bringing in 4 first-year players and it seems like there's opportunities up for grabs. How much is that a reminder? And I want you to both answer this question. And Josh, we'll start with you. A reminder that nothing that you took away from last season, regardless of who the player is, that is just going to carry over because there's other guys and a lot of competition internally within this roster.
Oh man, it's a huge reminder. These guys come in every day with a fire in them. So, it keeps us going as, people coming back. It keeps us having a good energy during practice. All the freshmen, they're good. They can really play. And, now they have people to learn from, which, not all of us had. So I feel like with the new energy they're bringing is very contagious to all of us, as well as the energy that we're bringing back.
So I feel like it's all building one big team cohesiveness that's really going to be good and fun to watch this season. Yeah, I
And
think.
how about you, Cam?
Yeah, I would say I think it's great. I want guys to push me. I want to push guys. Like if everyone's really contributing and making each other better, then we're gonna have a great team on the court. And it doesn't matter who's playing because everyone's gonna give it their all.
Coach, I want to bring you back into the conversation, and guys, we'll speak to you as we move forward here. And a reminder to the media, if you do have any questions, just use the raise hand function, and we'll certainly bring you in. One player that jumped out, Coach Engel's last season, was Geronimo Rubio de la Rosa in terms of what he brought to the table from a ball handling perspective and a scoring aspect. What do you take away from his first exposure to the league and what he can continue to do to improve as a player this season?
I mean, it was amazing to watch his progression. He came in and as a freshman, and talking about the Giants and the New York quarterbacks, right? You got all these guys get drafted and they're thrown out there and they got to read all the different defenses with all these fellas running after him, right? And he had to do the same thing with a completely brand new team. And he was able I've never been around a kid who just has been able to just sort of take everything that's thrown at him and just process it in such an easy and unemotional way and actually get something out of it. He's got true leadership ability to him. And I think the best thing about this year's team is last year's team, we were definitely, he had to play the point due to injuries, and he's a more natural off the ball player, and he was able to, he had the burden of doing everything. And if he didn't play well, we were probably not going to have a chance to win. So this year he'll be moved off the ball, which I think he's really appreciated. He can get back to a more comfortable position for him. And I think everybody on our roster has been moved down now. I think last year we had a lot of guys, just because of some of the situations we had a lot of guys out of position, that I think we should have more natural positioning for everybody. And you'll see that probably from an offensive and defensive perspective, a little bit more of a continuity.
Not that you want to put players in their unnatural positions, but as you know, there's unpredictability in every season. Guys go down. The fact that they were exposed to some of those other positions, the fact that Rubio de la Rosa can handle point guard duties, what flexibility does that give you in the event you have to make some tweaks and changes this season?
I mean, it really is what basketball is now. Everything's positionless, but to give them the opportunity to play in positions that they really weren't playing in high school, in a mid-major plus type league right off the bat. So it was, from a learning perspective, that's where I think it's been very positive that these guys were able to understand that and to process it and to put it to work. And that's where I think a lot of the stuff that went in over the spring and the summertime was able to become, from what I've seen so far in practice, has been able to expand. And it's a credit to the guys, because it's all learning.
Speaking of learning and what you took away from last season, Coach, once you get into the heart of Ivy League play, as you mentioned, this team is relatively young, battle tested from last year, some of the players. What are you hoping the identity of this year's team is going to be?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. And that's what we're figuring out right now. I think, we're not allowed to work with our guys in the summertime. So when we scrimmage, we are scrimmaging against teams that have been practicing for months and who are ready to play like real competitive games at this time. So we're still in the process of trying to figure out exactly where our roster sort of sets up. So I think it's trying to figure out all those things. And then the identity is, for us, is just, I mean, it's all simple. I think it's all coach speak with everybody, but we want to make sure we make the extra pass. We want to be unselfish on both sides of the ball, and we want to create some sort of toughness defensively. So those are things that we've talked about. And it's really, like I said, about chemistry. It's about developing chemistry within the five. Who's the best, who can defend the ball screens the best? Like, what two guys can I put in the ball screen that are going to be able to get a stop here? Who's our best rebounder? Who's our best off the ball rebounder? Who can we put the ball in someone's hands when we're getting pressed? Like, those are chemistry things that we're still going to try to figure out as we go through here.
First test right out of the gates against Rutgers on the road, Power 5 team. Big picture perspective, what are you looking to see out of your team right away? And what are your thoughts on the non-conference schedule and hoping you in helping you get ready essentially for the upcoming Ivy League slate?
I love the local games. I love having the opportunity to play against Rutgers. I love going over to the RAC. They obviously they've really been able to, what Steve Pikiell's done over there has been amazing. So, just being a local guy, I love playing those local games. So I'm very excited from a personal standpoint. Obviously, they're going to be a big challenge for us, but this is the first year our schedule is actually, to be really honest, has been manageable. We have 15 home games this year, which is a big deal. We've had some challenges getting the schedule right, and we've been able to do that this year. So I really hope that from a recovery standpoint, from a management standpoint, I'm hoping that a lot of with the way the schedule's set up this year, it will lead to more development within our roster.
Coach, I want to bring the players back in before we wrap up. Cam, Josh, curious your thoughts about the excitement of going locally to Rutgers to open the season, and how much you think you're going to learn about yourselves and your team immediately at the start of this season.
I think it's going to be great. You always want to give yourself a challenge and see where your team's at. Going away to Rutgers, playing in that environment, playing at a Power 5 school, you're going to find out a lot of things about your team, but that's just something we're going to have to do. And, we got a lot of hungry guys ready to compete and really attack them. We're not going to take any team lightly. We're all going to go at every single team. So that's something we're really looking forward to.
And Josh, how about you, considering it's going to be the first time in quite some time that you'll be back on the court?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be great. We're going to learn a lot. Every day we're learning and we're growing. Win or loss, everything can be used as a learning experience. So, I feel like it'll be really great for our guys to come out there, and show some energy, show the stuff that we've been working on, and make them react to us. And that's something we always talk about, making people react to us instead of reacting to other people. So, it'll be really fun to get out there with these new guys and the new energy and going off of the culture that we've been trying to build and just to show everything that we've been working on.
Columbia opening up with a road test at Rutgers Monday, November 7th. Coach Engels, Cam, Josh, always good to talk with you guys. Certainly looking forward to the upcoming season. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure, as that is a look at the Columbia Lions for the upcoming 2022-23 season. And from Columbia, we turn our attention to the final stop on our lengthy tour of the Ivy League. The Brown Bears, who finished 13-16 last season, went 5-9 in Ivy League play. Much like Dartmouth, a lot of close games last season, and they bring back the Ivy League Rookie of the Year, Keno Lilly Jr., who is one of the individuals joining us right now, in addition to the head coach of Brown, none other than Mike Martin. Coach, Keno, great to see you. Appreciate you both joining us here on Media Day. Coach, I'm going to offer you the floor to begin with some opening comments here.
Yeah, Lance, good afternoon. Everybody, good afternoon. Thanks for being here. And always a great time of year to get together and start looking forward to another exciting season. Like most people around the country, we've been hard at work in preparation, for the upcoming opener on November 7th. Really like the group we have here, Lance. We've got a really nice blend of experience, talented newcomers, and we have some experienced guys like the one that's joining me here, Keno Lilly, who's only a sophomore. So we're excited. We're excited about what we can become. We are probably tired of going up against each other every day in practice and ready for opportunity to play against some other people. We'll have a couple preseason opportunities to do that coming up, and then certainly a great challenge to start November 7th at the University of Vermont. But thanks to everybody for being on, and happy that we're talking Brown basketball.
Absolutely. Looking forward to everything that you just laid out. Well, Coach, a good starting point is the player that's joining us, Keno, and you referenced not bad to build off of what was a very impressive first campaign for him. What do you attribute to why he made such a smooth transition and was able to make that immediate impact for your squad?
Well, before you talk about his talent, just his steadiness, his humility, his approach every day. He's an exceptional teammate. He doesn't feel entitled to anything. He just comes every day and he works, whether it's in practice or outside of practice time with our coaching staff or in the weight room. Keno approaches every day as an opportunity to get better. And when you have that steady approach, with great humility and great drive to become great, and you combine that with the talent he has, then you have, I think, the opportunity to have a pretty special player. And he's got a lot to work on. He knows that, and but he's working hard every day to get better. I think you'll see a much better player this year than you saw last year. Specifically about him as a player, Lance, his combination of speed and skill is probably the best I've coached. He can play with the ball in his hands. He can play without the ball. He's a playmaker. He's a finisher. And he's just one of those guys, like every time he gets a shot, you think it's going in, because he's that skilled. And, I think the challenge for him is, continue to become more vocal, continue to become more of a leader. He leads by example every day, but continue to, communicate more and continue to make strides on both ends of the court.
Well, especially given the fact that you did reference you're bringing back some experience, Coach, but you do lose Tamanang Cho and Jalen Gainey, two key integral pieces on your roster. No one player, I'm sure, in your mind is going to take their place. But how do you go about filling in for those two players specifically, especially Gainey, who gave you so much on the defensive side of the ball?
We lost a lot. Obviously, Jalen, Tamanang, David Mitchell was a great 4-year player for us, and Noah Marin, Tyler Brown. We lost 5 great people before you even think about them as players. But and those guys really helped. I mean, Tamanang especially. Like when he came here, we had struggled a little bit, and then we had some great success in his time, and those guys really helped put us in position to recruit guys like Keno and like some of the other folks we'll talk about. But I think you replace those guys, Lance, through recruiting, and we feel really good about the way we've recruited, not just this year's freshmen, but some guys that we had on the bench last year, kind of biding their time behind Jalen and Tamanang. And I think it's a great opportunity for those guys to really step forward and, take advantage of what's in front of them. I think recruiting and development, we talk all the time in our program about what do we stand for? We really want to develop. We really want to improve. We want to get better every day, right? We're always getting better. And Keno represents that. Some of the guys you mentioned who graduated represent that because of how much improvement they showed throughout their careers. But we've got a whole host of other guys that I think are ready to show that, that they've gotten way better since the last time you saw us on the court.
One player in particular, Coach, that I want to highlight is Paxton Wojcik, the transfer from Loyola Chicago. What impact did he make for you last season, and how much more do you think you could get out of him, speaking of the experience that you are bringing back?
Yeah, Paxton's a great, he came to us with great habits. Paxton's the son of a coach, Doug Wojcik at Michigan State, and from, an athletic family. His mother, was a collegiate athlete at the Naval Academy. Obviously, his father was a teammate of David Robinson's, and his brother Denham's at Harvard. And I know adds a lot of value to that program. But, Paxton, so he came with great habits from his family and from his previous program, Loyola Chicago. And he was ready to play right away. And, I think that was an interesting thing. Paxton is driven to lead. He's got an infectious personality. I think he has great leadership abilities. But he was coming into a program last year that had a lot of veterans, like you mentioned, right, who had been in the program for a while. And I thought Pax did a great job of being an exceptional teammate with them. But also finding ways to put his impact on our program. I think this year you'll see a much more vocal Paxton Wojcik. I've already seen it every day in practice, and he leads by example. He also leads with his passion and his energy and his approach to the game every day. So we're fortunate to have him. I think when you talk about how you win in college basketball, how you win in our league, you have to be really well rounded. You have to be balanced. But you have to feel good about your guards, and we feel pretty good about the guard play we have here at Brown.
I'm glad you brought up the phrase "how to win," because, Coach, let me preface my comment. I'm not here to put salt in your wounds, but as I referenced earlier, you played a lot of close games last season. I can tell based on your reaction. Not fun when you have 8 games that unfortunately you're on the wrong end of, but they were decided by 2 possessions or less. So I read into that, okay, well, maybe that's not bad experience to take from last season and some learning opportunities. How do you view that experience, and what can you apply to this year's team from that?
Lance, we've thought about it so much since March, right? We thought we had and last year's last year. It's gone. It's past us. This is a new year. This is a new group. And, we've really focused on what we can do going forward. But I think you have to talk about what have you learned from your experiences as a program and as a coach. We hope we learned a lot from last year. We thought we had a team. We talked about our talent, last year that was capable of contending for an Ivy League championship. We showed at times that we were good enough to do that, right? The game at Carolina, some of the other preseason non-conference games, some great games we had in conference, but it wasn't consistent enough. We didn't find a way to win those close games, and adversity. Hopefully, if you embrace it and you try to learn from it, you can grow because of it. And we're hopeful that this year's group is well prepared for those situations. We'll find out. We haven't faced a whole lot of adversity yet. We're working hard in practice. These guys are competing like crazy, but we'll find out. What we really learned when the season gets going. But I do think that you bring up a great point. Last year's close losses hopefully can serve as a learning experience for this group, and time will tell. But I'm optimistic that hopefully it did.
I want to bring Keno into the conversation, Coach, and then we'll certainly circle back with you. Keno, let's start with what Coach was just talking about. You were there for a lot of those close games, and I was just talking with Coach about what your takeaway is, what you learned from that. How about through the player's lens? What do you take away from all of those close games, and what can you fine-tune to make sure you finish better in this season?
Really, we just have to not put ourselves in those situations where to be in them close games. We just have to fight harder in the first half, so we won't have to be in them situations towards the end of the game because those games hurt. They really do. But we live and we learn. We played last year. We have guys stepping up from last year this year to really pull through. So I don't know.
Well, you certainly have somebody with your talent, as we were just talking about, who won Ivy League Rookie of the Year. When you look back at last season, Keno, we got your coach's perspective. What do you attribute to why you made such a smooth transition and made an immediate impact?
It was really the coaches' confidence in me, the coaches and players. They told me, they said I got to shoot more. First scrimmage of the season against Hartford, they told me I got to shoot more. They put confidence in me. The players found me. I started hitting shots. I got my confidence rolling, and it just went throughout the season.
So the fact that you lost a lot of weaponry from last season, there is some experience, but as a young player who maybe is at a bit of a transition to take on more of a vocal leadership role, how much of the onus is on you to maybe accelerate that process this season because of all of the players that you lost? I
think it's a lot on me. Off the season I had last year, and everybody's telling me to be vocal every day. We have guys like Paxton and Dan who are vocal, but I got to step up and enter that role. So I'm trying working hard every day.
How challenging is that when you maybe are thrust into something? Not to say that you're not somebody that's willing to speak up, but when you're maybe challenged, thrown into that a little bit sooner perhaps than you anticipated.
It is a challenge, but it's what I got to do. You got to win. It's what I got to do.
As far as the identity, Keno, of this year's team, when we talk about all the players you lost last season, but they could still build around you, what do you think the identity of this year's team is going to be?
I think we just have to feel like we're trying to play faster this year. We're trying to play fast. So try to play fast and be disruptive on defense. That's really the focal points right now. So if we play fast, be disruptive on defense, get fast break points, get more possessions, I think that's our identity.
It's interesting to hear your breakdown about the identity because it maybe gets me thinking about so many close games last season, that how much offense feeds into defense, vice versa, those complementary features. I would say we maybe focus more on that in football with special teams, but in basketball, there is a correlation between what you do on offense can help or hurt you on defense and vice versa. How much do you think that may have played a role in last season's results?
It might have played. It probably played a decent role. We didn't play as fast. We didn't get many possessions. If we did get a bad shot, we couldn't get it right back or something like that. So Since we're playing faster this year, I think we'll have more possessions. I think we'll be good. I think we'll be good.
Well, from a broadcasting standpoint, selfishly, I'll say you guys want to play fast. I have no problem with that. It's an extremely enjoyable game to call. So I fully support your messaging, and I can see Coach nodding as well. I don't think he has any complaints from that standpoint. Let's bring in some members of the media to join the conversation. We begin with Scott Cordischi from ESPN+. Scott?
Thanks, Lance. Hey, Keno, so this question is for you. Tell me if I'm right or wrong with this. So I look at this year's team and I look at your ceiling and I point back to the second game of the year last year when you guys went down to North Carolina and gave the Tar Heels everything they could handle. And if you remember in that game, Ticho didn't play. He was out with a hip injury. And your two other, high impact seniors, Gainey and Mitchell, I think played 13 and 11 minutes respectively because they were in foul trouble. My point is, everybody that was a major contributor in that particular game where you almost upset the Tar Heels who played in the national championship game is back this year. Is it right to say that that was a good indication of what the ceiling or how high the ceiling is for this year's team?
I would say so. We didn't have Ticho. JG got in foul trouble. D-Mitch got in foul trouble. Nana and Dan really they had two good games. Pax played well. So, I mean, they're all here this year and they got better too. So I think the ceiling might be higher.
Coach, I guess similar question for you. Do you look back at that and say, this is how good this team can be, or am I making too much of that one game?
I hope you're right, Scott. I hope it is what entails, what lies ahead for this team. I will tell you that, we do have some offensive firepower. Keno talked about, playing with pace and, it's something we've always encouraged here, but I think the speed and the skill of this year's team, obviously represented very well by Keno. I think it's something we want to take advantage of. And, but there's going to have to be, we're going to have to be a great defensive team if we want to win. We have to be really balanced, like we talked about earlier. So I do think that there were a lot of moments last year where we looked like a really good basketball team, and we took steps forward as a program. I've told so many people that despite the results and the record in sixth place, we took steps forward last year as a program in terms of our culture, in terms of our process, in terms of our people, and we just have to, hopefully the results will follow. Right? I feel strongly, that if you have really strong process and people and culture, the results are going to be there in time. And I believe that'll happen for this program. But yes, I do think that that's a great example of what we can be when we're at our best.
Mike, one more question for you and one more for Keno as well. Like your football counterpart here at Brown, James Perry, said when EJ graduated and went to the NFL's Jaguars, we're going to have to spread the wealth a little bit more offensively. The load can't be shouldered by one guy. Do you look at it that way similarly, losing a guy like Cho? Is it going to be kind of a team effort to kind of pick up the slack offensively? Will it have to be more, ball movement, getting everybody involved?
You know what, Scott, I'm not, like when I think about what we lost, it's the first thing that jumps to mind is defense and rebounding, right? I mean, and again, I think our young front court players are ready, and we can talk about them specifically if people want, but like, I think our front court players are ready. They just didn't necessarily have as much opportunity last year playing behind Jalen and David and Tamanang. Offensively, I'm not that concerned. I mean, this is a really dynamic offensive group. I obviously we lost a lot of production with those guys, but this team, from a productivity standpoint offensively, and maybe November 7th when we're in Burlington, I'll eat my words, but I don't think I'm as concerned, from an offensive standpoint, being able to put points on the board.
And Keno, last question for you. Not that defenses already weren't concentrating on you your rookie year, you were terrific, but maybe even more so this year, right? I kind of feel like you could be a marked man heading into this season. Are you ready for that challenge, knowing that teams are probably going to try to scheme it up, put their best on the ball defender on you to try to slow you down?
Yeah, I'm ready. I feel like, they can't key in too much because we have a lot of offensive power, but I feel like I'm ready for the challenge.
Thanks, guys.
Scott, appreciate the questions. Let's turn to Rob Brown of Ivy Hoops Online. Rob?
Hi, Coach. Just a question about a couple of players from last year's roster. Nana Owusu-Anane, really, really good start to the year, especially the 20 points against UNC. He had an injury, missed the last 7 games. What's his status for this year?
Yeah, Rob, thanks for asking. Great to see you or hear from you. And thanks for being with us. Yeah, Nana is fully cleared. He's been fully cleared for all basketball activities since the beginning of September. He did undergo off-season shoulder surgery, as you mentioned, but he is back, and we expect him to be a major contributor. I think he learned a lot last year, but I also think he's one of those guys I mentioned that maybe a little more opportunity here this year, which he's going to earn. And, obviously with opportunity comes great responsibility. But he learned so much from Tamanang and Jalen, but he also obviously played behind those guys a lot. So hopefully, I'm not even going to say hopefully, I'm confident he'll be ready to step into a major role.
Great. And Kimo Ferrari, really strong defender, gets under the skin of your opponents. Do you look to see him having a larger role this year, or do you like him coming off the bench as a spark plug?
You know what? I think he can excel in either role, Robin, but it's a great observation by you. He's really a disruptor, defensively, and he's a really good offensive player too. He can make shots. He's got great speed. He's a willing passer. He's another guy. You think of speed and excelling in transition offensively. I think that fits him really well. I think he's part of our core group, right now that have kind of earned major minutes. Whether he starts the game or doesn't, will remain to be seen. But he's going to play starters minutes, I can tell you that. And he'll add a great dimension to our team when he's out there. He's a junior, even though last year was his first year of playing competitive Division I basketball. He's been in our practices now for 3 years. So he's a great our backcourt. We returned 5 guys who have played major minutes in our backcourt. You talk about Nana in the front court, and then I think we've got some guys ready to step forward and join them in the rotation.
Great, thanks, Coach.
Rob, appreciate the question. Thanks so much, Coach Martin. Keno, greatly appreciate the time and the insight. Looking forward to seeing the team this season, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Lance, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Pleasure having the both of you on here on the program as Brown opens its season at Vermont, 7 p.m. Eastern on Monday, November 7th. Well, that is going to conclude today's festivities. We want to thank all of the student athletes and coaches, and of course, all the media members for participating in today's program. We would also like to thank those that tuned in live on YouTube. We look forward to another great competitive year of Ivy League men's basketball. Full program is available on YouTube. If you'd like your own copy, please email JJ Klein, League's men's basketball communications contact at jj@ivyleague.com. That's jj@ivyleague.com. I'm Lance Meadow. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week.